You're muted.
Well, I'm just going to keep talking anyway.
You're muted.
Still muted.
Bunch of idiots. God. Tim, let's start this whole thing again.
Blues. Sorry, Blues.
Son of a
Oh, you're fitting in already.
We like to put B's in front of everything, so
Yes. You say we. You like to put bees in front of them. Made me want to reproduce. Gonna start that again. That sounds a little funny. I've not watched Battle of Britain either.
Jensen, why are you even here?
So, listeners, he'll be on mute for the rest of the episode. I thought TJ was controversial. You are just punching babies out there for crying out loud, clubbing baby seals. You can edit that one out.
You can't say that.
Oh my gosh.
I'll be canceled with that dialogue.
What?
Yes, we are all 13. JB Rod Burgundy, you. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's no saving this now.
It's a train wreck of epic proportions.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 86 of the Plastic Posse podcast, brought to you by Tankcraft. It's a lovely day here in Colorado, and I'm excited to get started in this episode with all of my lovely co-hosts and a special guest. So let's go around the room to see what everybody's working on. Grant, how are you today, and what's on your bench?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day here in the 80s. I've been working on figures. Spent a fabulous weekend last weekend in Las Vegas with JB and Rick and John. So we had a great time, but came home really motivated. Usually don't get motivated at shows like that, but it was a great time and I really have been motivated.
Awesome. Certainly, I agree with you there around LVO, and we're going to definitely talk about it a little bit more in detail later to share our thoughts, our impressions, and certainly our experiences from that event. Let's go over to Utah. Scott, how are you today? Our fearless leader.
I'm doing okay. It's a little bit cold over here, but nice sunny day so far. As far as what's on the bench, I finished that mini art tractor. It's in primer. Picked out some colors last night while I was on a Zoom with Mr. Bonani and Justin Lentz and Steve Baker. Also working on a 148 scale X-plane for a friend. Probably won't talk about that. It's a little bit of a surprise. So been doing that. Been having a good time.
Awesome. Let's go back across the country. TJ, how are you today?
Oh, not too bad. Glad to be back. I missed the last episode. I was double booked for gymnastics tournaments for my daughter. So luckily, you guys held down the fort without me. I'm doing pretty good. Can't really complain.
Nice. What do you got on your bench? I know you just finished the pack croat, but what's next?
Yeah. So for 2024, I was working on a bunch of stuff, but I decided to build the pack crota or croat. I don't know what the actual proper pronunciation is, but I've had it for a while. It's like one of my favorite. I say that with like every machining creator design, but it is legit one of my favorite things. It's just so cool. And I was just sitting there one day. I was like, I'm just going to build this thing, and I did. And then since I built it, I decided to paint it. And if anyone saw some of the comments I made about it, I inadvertently copied Brian Krieger, not directly, but it's very similar to a couple of his camo schemes. And I was really proud of myself when I painted it. So I'm like, man, this looks like super good. I love this color combination. And then I was at work. I'm like, where have I seen? I'm like, why does this seem so familiar? And then, of course, I looked at his stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's why, because Brian's done it. And of course. And but yeah, Brian gave me the seal of approval for it. So I guess I can't complain. So yeah, I got that finished. I'm currently writing an article for it. Which I had not intended to do when I was building it. So I'm trying to remember everything that I did. I didn't take a lot of pictures of it either, but I let them know that. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. And if I have to, I can fake some, I guess. But yeah, I got that. And then I built, what is that damn thing? The Fliega. This is one of the new wave suits. I have a couple of them. I was on a roll. It was like the day I finished the pack croat I built that, and it's all built up. I haven't primed it yet, but it's ready to go. I'm gonna probably put them flying because they're like spacesuits. I had a couple ideas, but since I have two, I might just put a rod up this one and do it that way. And yeah, I've also got back to working on my Sherman 3. Trying to get it done for a show in 2 weeks. I don't think I'm going to make it, but I'm going to try. I started weathering it, and then I finished building my Sherman 5 that I did all the welds on, added a bunch of other details. Luckily, someone pointed out that these Canadian OP tanks had like extra auxiliary antenna mounts on top of the auxiliary antenna mount, so I had to go back and do that. I got a foul weather hood for it from Resicast. So yeah, that one's ready to go. It's just needs to be primed.
Awesome.
That's it. Yeah, I haven't been busy at all.
Yeah, right. Well, hopefully a couple of them can get done, and we'll see them in Atlanta in 2 weeks at least. So that'll be fun. All right, let's go back to Utah. Master of Serpents himself. Doug, how are you today, sir? And what is on your bench?
I'm doing okay. Wow. Last time I talked about the kits I'd started, which was the Take-On Missouri turret in 72nd scale, and it's humongous, and I was planning on getting a lot of work done with that. And I actually was able to get the paint for my Ukrainian Leopard. So I was very stoked about that. So you know what I did? I started a different kit because that's how I roll. I started the Take-On, one of the new Take-On Hetzers.
Nice.
So that's
you wouldn't
what
be
I've
a
been
scale
working.
modeler if you didn't. So it's totally
I don't know.
fine.
We've met a few people that are like one kit at a time. That's all I do, just one kit. And that's wonderful. I wish I could. I just get myself distracted so easy.
Those are also ex-convicts, so
I might have had something to do with Doug picking that up at MRS. So
yeah, I'd walked right past it, and Scott says, "Hey, look! Oh my gosh, they've got it! It's only $26." I'm like, okay. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about it. I just grabbed it.
Exactly.
Very nice. Well, certainly looking forward to that. And the Hetzer is an awesome little tank, and I have the G13 that I hope to start really soon. So thanks for that, Doug. We're going to go over across the pond. He might be feeling low, but he's always up in our hearts. That's Jensen. How are you today, sir?
I'm all right. Keeping with January fashion, I'm a bit sick. Spent the last 2 weeks coughing my lungs up, but still in a pretty good mood despite that.
Nice. Have you touched the bench?
No. But that's not a problem anyway. Because to quote TJ, no one wants to see my shitty models anyway. No, I've been in bed, trying to sleep and get rid of this illness that someone very kindly brought into the house. Because anytime I've tried to just sit and do anything, I've just been in coughing fits. It doesn't mean I don't want to be at the bench. There's a lot I want to do. It's just sitting there and not sputtering and feeling drowsy. It's not been ideal, but I think it's on its way out now. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything crossed, I can actually get something done.
No Snuggie this week.
Oh no, it's starting to warm up for Britain anyway.
We hope you feel better. We hope to see something on your bench soon, especially that new mini art truck. That looks awesome. So, right, we're going to go all the way back. We're going to go to our special guest. Rick Lawler is joining us today from a wet and wild Portland, Oregon. So how's it going out there? What's on your bench, Rick?
Hey, it's going well. Welcome, everybody. Hello. So I'll be one of those ex-cons who does the models one at a time. Thank you very much. But, however, I think I've spent enough time and time out here that I've come a little bit reformed here, at least this week, and that I have a bunch of stuff that's kind of working on at the same time, which makes me very itchy and uncomfortable. So where do I start? Well, I did a squid fishing boat. So I did a boat. And just finished that up. That was a work project, and that was a lot of fun, something different and fun to do. Just before we came on air, I finished up the building part of one of those new AK Brewer rail shunters. So that's going to go into primer and paint a little bit later on today. Came back from Las Vegas, and as many of us were doing, we had little models we were working on the bench and had this 3D printed troll that I just kind of felt like I wanted to give it some love and attention. So I did a little bit more painting on that this week as well, and that's posted online. So just kind of finishing up a lot of projects. I still have that Chevy, the mini art Chevy here that I want to build a little diorama for that as well. So like I said, a few things I got to clear off the bench, and then I'll start being my regular self again and not one of you blokes who jumps around.
Well, we certainly appreciate your discipline. It doesn't excuse the fact you're an ex-convict. So, but no, that's great. I love the fishing boat. I think what's interesting there is you really explored the inks, which super excited to see the video that you're going to produce on that and learn more about that new product from 8K.
Yeah, that was fun. It's great when you have something like that where it's just kind of going into it cold. I had no idea exactly, what to expect, how to use inks, and you're just experimenting along the way and having a really good time. I'm really enjoying working with those inks, and definitely going to be part of my everyday process coming forward. That's for sure.
Awesome. One of the things you mentioned too, I think it's important to highlight. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and even the co-hosts here have experienced it where, you slam something together, you don't take that much time in certain areas. And then Rick, as you were saying, you get to the finishing part and you're like, holy cow, I actually like this. Maybe I should have took my time a little bit more up front.
Yeah. We were on a call. It was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very careful with some seam lines and such around the hole. And it's like, this is actually looking pretty good. So I may want to go back and fix that. So I did a little bit of putty and sanding and repainting and got it all back together. And so now I'm much more happy with it, which, maybe just take your time a little bit. Slammer builds are fun, but, take an extra 10 minutes here and there. And I think that's the lesson I learned off of that one.
Awesome. I'll wrap us up. On the bench here, I have a couple projects. Maybe I'm the ex-convict, I guess, in that regard. I have the FOMOG. Hopefully that was pronounced correctly. Peter Fidlowski, he coached me after our last episode. So FOMOG. Let me know how that goes, Peter. Welcome feedback. Love that word. But with that kit, that's Das Werk's new kit. It's going together well, just a lot of pieces. It's essentially 2 or 3 kits in one. Working on the 88 today and hopefully getting the cab all put together. I've staged it in a sense where some things need primed before I put it together. Just want to ensure that all the areas get covered with paint and I don't have to, orient the thing and try to spray in crevices. So I'm just going to hit some panels before I put them together. Outside of that, as Rick mentioned, we were at LVO. I had a little Warhammer dude that I tweaked a little bit when I got home. So that was fun. And then I also am staring at the ARL 44 from Amusing Hobby. It's been in primer forever. And one of those weekends is now where, the wife's out of town. I don't have much projects going on outside the FOMOG. And I'm itching to paint. I think I'm going to throw some white on it to, appreciate it and then paint it that French green, probably a little bit of blue and turquoise in it as well, just exploring colors. And I think that's one of the things we'll talk about it from LVO as well, is kind of really getting your eyes open when you see miniatures from legit pros and the vibrancy of colors in which they use. And as an armor modeler, as a military modeler, you look at your paint rack and you're like, wow, this is all like super dull, desaturated, just non-exciting colors in a way. I mean, that's the subject matter that pulls you towards that range. But, as I was there and looking at paints from AK, I bought some, really bumping up the vibrancy in my palette. And I'm sure a lot of us can share that sentiment, but we'll get to that later. In terms of the bench, that's what's going on here. Looking forward to jumping into this episode, and I can just roll right into our main discussion topic, which I think is very timely based on what's been released on Apple TV Plus. So as many of us know, Masters of the Air just came out. I watched the first 2 episodes. They are on Apple TV, as I mentioned, streaming service from the same producers as Band of Brothers and The Pacific. But the heart of this conversation is really around modeling the movies. And I'll set the stage. I think movies inspire us in every way, shape, or form in life. It could be a career field. It could be a love interest. It honestly can be anything. And scale modeling is no exception. It's the reason why I build scale models, to be honest. I remember watching Band of Brothers Episode 3, Karen Tan, when the Jagdpanther came out and shot at the Sherman and the Cromwells. At that moment, I was like, I need to build this. And I was given a Tamiya Jagdtiger by my dad, and the rest is history. I think the same can be said for a lot of people. And you see that online, whether it's, Fury. I think that's a great example, and of course there's the other camp that, we're going to see so many B-17s. That's not a bad thing when it comes to this, or we're going to see so many Shermans because of Fury or whatever. And I would just like to go around the room and understand, as we think about the movies, miniseries, TV shows, love to hear about how it has inspired you to build a model or get into the hobby or continue it, share it, and just really talk about it. Because I think, again, it's timely with Masters of the Air. You see a preponderance of B-17s entering the fray in social media. You see a lot of them actually sold out on websites. And I think that's a good thing. And that's my stance. But, as I look around the room, I'll pass the torch. We'll just start off with Scott. How has movies or the silver screen inspired some of your work?
Well, I mean, I've talked about this before, but the reason I'm a scale modeler is because of Battlestar Galactica and specifically, the designs, the original Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, you know, that kind of weathered, lived in look. And another big influence on the way that I like to look at things was the original Blade Runner. And, you know, I've always kind of, it's just personal taste, but I've always really kind of preferred that more tactile, actual look of a filmed subject or a model versus CGI. I still don't really like CGI. I really prefer the other. So yeah, that really has impacted me to the point where I'm not sure I'd be in the hobby if it wasn't for, you know, that Colonial Viper I saw in Ralph McQuarrie and all the work that he did on those early science fiction films. So yeah, in a very significant way for me. John, I don't know if you have that kind of personal connection. You've talked about Band of Brothers, but yeah, for me, it's Ralph McQuarrie's the reason I'm a scale modeler.
Yeah, and I think Scott, for you, if there isn't a Colonial Viper in progress on your bench at any one time, Scott's sick, and we need to check in on him.
Probably.
So, okay, we'll go across the pond. We'll go to Jensen. I know you're under the weather, but I know this topic excited you. So tell us a little bit about how maybe the movies or a mini series has inspired your modeling.
Yeah, a bit like yourself. Growing up, watching these movies and series is what made me want to model these subjects. And not even so much the vehicles that were involved, but it was actually the sets and the scenes. One that stands out very specifically when you brought this up was Enemy at the Gate and all the city destruction of Stalingrad. As soon as I watched that movie, I was like, I've got to make dioramas and vignettes of like all this destruction, all these soldiers. I think that film does a really good job. It's one of my favorite films like ever. One of my favorite films. It's a great film. Just with how it creates the mood and destruction, and it's a really depressing movie. I mean, it's war, of course it is. But that one stood out when you brought the subject up. Again, Saving Private Ryan, that's another one that's got just the scenes, like the beginning of that movie with the beach landing. Not only like the vehicles involved, but again, the setting, the scene, all the props, the thousands of actors that were used in it. Yeah, it's. I've actually never seen Band of Brothers or The Pacific. I just saw JB's eyebrow.
Now who's the convict?
Oh my gosh.
I keep getting told to watch them, and I think it's one of those, the more I'm told to watch them, I'm more resistant. I don't know why. Like you mentioned, Fury, just notorious. Like as soon as that film came out, we saw a billion easy eights. Not a bad thing. People are building models. That's amazing. Dunkirk. As soon as I watched that, I was like, I really want to build a Spitfire now. It's weird, these movies, as soon as they feature anything that's even remotely nostalgic or prominent, people jump on it. And I think that's really good. I don't know how it can ever be a bad thing. But yeah, as soon as there's a feature of something, especially that people like us, we all recognize, it really inspires and helps us want to be like, yeah, I think it's time I built one of them again.
Yeah, for sure. Also, listeners, if you're interested in becoming a Plastic Posse host, please submit your applications online. We have an open seat now until something is rectified. I thought we were friends. I thought I knew you. You've never seen Band of Brothers or The Pacific?
No. I think I saw one episode, and funnily enough, it was the episode you referred to, episode 3.
Wow.
This explains a lot.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I know you
didn't make you want to watch more.
Really bad attention span. I think that's obvious. I can't seem to stick to stuff. I know, shocking. But I struggle with movies and TV series to keep my attention stuck on them for long. I need to be like instantly grabbed.
We're going to give you a guarantee. If you get through episode 2 of Band of Brothers and you're not hooked, then you'll get a refund or something. But I mean, really fantastic. And, Jensen, you brought up Enemy of the Gates. It goes back to kind of that tactile. I don't think there's been a better movie to kind of, represent what goes on in a city that's just completely destroyed by war. I mean, every scene in that just makes you feel like you're breathing concrete dust into your lungs. They're really, really good. And it's one of the things I love about Band of Brothers.
Yeah. You got to watch it. You got to. It's part of becoming a U.S. citizen. It's actually on the test.
Oh, right. Well, I'll rectify that by the next episode.
Thanks, buddy. All right, we're going to go over to Rick. I see you off mute, so we'll go to you. How's the movie has inspired your work or pushed your hobby forward?
Oh, gee whiz. Total admitting things here. I generally have something on the side of my desk, old film or something like that, Band of Brothers or something like that, just kind of playing in the background. So they're a constant reminder. I enjoy that genre, war movie genre, that kind of stuff, history genre. bringing it just real quick, I've seen the first episode of Masters of the Sky or whatever it's called. What stuck out to me on that one is when they came back from their first mission, the way the damage was portrayed on the B-17s. It was really well done. It wasn't just, I don't know if it was well done. I don't know how accurate it is. I've never been in a B-17 that's been shot up with 20 millimeter rounds, but it looked really different and authentic to me. And those are the kind of small details that, if I were to actually portray some sort of aircraft coming back, I'd go back and look at that as a reference during my searches. In terms of just classic movies that I love for different reasons, I remember watching Cross of Iron, Sam Peckinpah movie and such like that. And it's just the whole idea of the trench warfare and the T-34s coming across their trenches and then putting the landmines on their tracks and stuff. I just thought that was captivating. Speaking of Stalingrad, the movie Stalingrad, the German release, that is gritty as can be, especially the scene where kind of like Jensen, everybody's talking about the grittiness of it, especially that part where they're attacking the factory when they first get into Stalingrad and going across that open ground. I really enjoy that. Movies that make you say, great movies. I love them. But like Battle of the Bulge, the old, 60s, 70s genre movies with
Telly Savalas in his finest.
Yeah. Every piece of equipment is absolutely wrong within these movies. And the backgrounds are wrong. You're in the Ardennes, but they're going across some sort of desert final battle scene or something, in Southern California. But I still enjoy them. The story's good. And you do get to look at the equipment. And I think that that's important as well, even though it's not really accurate for the movie itself. And then probably my very favorite movie, which I haven't modeled this movie, but it sure was inspirational to me, is The Great Escape. Love that movie. And I grew up, out in the woods, which explains a lot, kind of by myself. I built tunnels. So just on the property, I would build tunnels, get down in there. I mean, looking back, I'm going like, glad those things didn't, collapse on me or something like that. I literally made little secret hiding places and cut little secret things out of my walls to put little slots in there to hide things. It was just, that movie was just fantastic to me. And so that was a big inspiration. Never really modeled it, but the whole genre, the whole war movie genre, the inspirations, whether it's historically accurate or not, I still get a kick out of it. I watch it. And Band of Brothers, Jensen, I don't know about you.
So, Rick, you're saying all those M8 Greyhounds with Balkenkreuz on them and the guns of Navarone, that those weren't accurate?
Well, I have to do a little bit more research, but there is a question mark there.
I just watched that the other day. That's a classic of, wrong vehicles, but pretty good movie in spite of it.
Yeah. I mean, the storytelling's great. And that's that's what draws me in and keeps me, I know a lot of these by heart anymore, but, they're good stories. Some of them are based on some sort of fact or loosely based on facts, which is always nice. And I also really enjoy the classic black and white British, back to Jensen over here, the British movies from during the war or just right after the war. Some of those are really, really well done. And they got great actors through all those. And yeah, they're kind of propaganda-ish, but the stories are generally really good and the acting's generally really well done as well.
Yeah, another black and white film I've always wanted to build Piccadilly Lily from 12 O'Clock High. Mm-hmm. Black and white, something about that. And just pure scenes with B-17s, no CGI back then. So it's, real life inspiration. Amazing movie. I will note, Rick, if I ever come over to your house, I'm going to watch out for the punji pits. Just so, when I exit my car, I don't get impaled or fall into a pit of despair.
I'll give you a map.
I appreciate that. So we're gonna go on. We'll go over to TJ. You model a lot of sci-fi, a lot of historical stuff. Where are you pulling inspiration from the silver screen, if you are?
So I'm going to be a little different here and say I don't really. Yeah, I love Star Wars and I love science fiction, but I don't. It's never really informed my modeling, because especially for Star Wars, because as I mentioned before, the studio scale models from the original Star Wars, they suck, man. They're not cool. I mean, not like, okay, they're cool. They're not good as models. And I've said more than one time, I don't like studio scale models that are just replications of the original ones, because the original ones weren't good as models. They're cool, they're interesting, and the story behind them is fantastic. And I like looking at them behind glass and in a museum or whatever. Like, that's awesome. I like that because I like the history of that physical thing. But as a reproduction that I would want to make, that's not me. If other people do it, that's cool. They're not for me. So yeah, like nothing. It doesn't. I don't really see anything. Really, the last time I could probably say that is the beginning of The Last Jedi, which I know a lot of people hate that movie. I don't. But that bomber thing that they were flying around in, when I saw that, like, ooh, that would be a cool model. Of course, there isn't one, and there probably never will be one. Other than that, like, I mean, I like all the more new Star Wars designs, but there's none of them I see. I'm like, I got to build that. That'd be cool as a model. Other than that weird bomber thing, that's only because it looks like, you know, like a B-29 bomber, which is cool looking. And as far as like military movies go, I don't know. There's just, I like all of those things. I like the history of them, but they don't really inform my modeling, right? Like, cause I look at Band of Brothers, and Band of Brothers is amazing. And, you know, the Sherman tanks they're driving are actually Grizzlies, which the Americans would not have had. And I know that. So I don't really want to build a Grizzly and put its spurious markings on it because it was in Band of Brothers. I see that. I'm like, well, that's cool. I like it. And, I appreciate the fact that that's what the production company did because that's what they had to do, right? They had no other choice. Yeah, I don't know. That's just me. I don't know. It's kind of a weird non-answer, but yeah, there's nothing really like I see like, yeah, I gotta build that. I want to have that really bad. I'll take inspiration from those sort of things, right? Especially in like any kind of grounded sci-fi, like Aliens, like that kind of stuff. I like the armor that like the Space Marines wear is interesting, and I'll pull inspiration from that, but I don't necessarily want to build a alien Space Marine, which I mean, I guess it would kind of be cool. I know there's like little figures for a game of them, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a lame answer, I guess.
No, it's a fair answer. I think, going back to your first point, essentially if you don't like building props, so that's why studio scale models, don't, and I'm the same way, I would rather see the vehicle built as the vehicle as opposed to the prop that supported the movie. And I know the purists don't like, I shouldn't say don't like, they don't include the glass for the cockpit and things like that. And from my personal standpoint, I think you agree, TJ, it's just on the table or in your display case. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. Now that I've thought about it for a second longer, like if there was anything that I would do from a movie, it would probably be Lulubelle, just because Lulubelle's a It's just a
Sahara.
It's a cool movie. Mm-hmm. It's just an M3. That's all that it is. It says Lulubelle on the side, but that'd be cool. That was like a real thing.
And I think there's something to be said too, taking inspiration from movies in a sense of like it goes back to Jensen's comment and kind of the tone or the atmosphere of something. As you mentioned, the Space Marine armor, you don't have to take everything, but you're like, oh, wow, I love that effect. Let me put it in scale, essentially. So I think there's a lot of merit to your answer.
Yeah, and like the interior set design from Star Wars movies and even Aliens in the Aliens movies, because it's very informed by that. There's grounded, gritty, realistic science fiction that's dirty and used. Yeah, I like that because that's why I like Machine and Krieger, because that is what that is, right? That's they were inspired by all that stuff too, and that's kind of like how I see it. Like nothing really makes me like, oh, I want to build like the Mos Eisley Cantina. That'd be cool. I mean, it would be cool. I'm not gonna act like it's not. I just don't want to do it. But I'll take the dirty nastiness of those areas and just incorporate that into what I do. Especially if anything like Machine and Krieger, and that, because it's like Star Wars meets steampunk type stuff, right? That's kind of, or diesel punk, really, not steampunk. That's kind of what it is. And that's I don't know, that's how I see it. Hopefully I didn't piss anyone off with the studio scale comments, but if you're into studio scale, man, that more power to you. I think that's cool that you like it. It's just not for TJ.
That's okay. We can have different opinions here. I know we're all about positivity. That's the fourth P, but we can dissent sometimes. It's okay. I'll stick on the Star Wars theme because I think it'll be coming up in this next person's comments. But Doug, what about yourself? I know you build a lot of Star Wars ships. I'm assuming you take that inspiration from the movies themselves, or maybe something else.
Of course, the movies, they rock. They most of them, I should say. I love Star Wars, but you know what? The early inspiration for me building models were movies like Patton and Midway. At the time, didn't know that those tanks weren't the real thing, that those weren't Panthers there at El Guitar. But I mean, it didn't matter. I loved watching that stuff, and I watched Patton probably 24 times as a kid. Now that I'm older and I watch these older shows, and people tell me those tanks aren't right. I mean, but I'm still that's my level of armor knowledge is hey, it's a tank. It's cool, and I'm into it. So watched a lot of that stuff. I loved watching Midway and the old stock footage they would take from World War II and stick it in there so you could watch the planes fly, even though sometimes those Wildcats were Hellcats. It didn't matter. It was cool. And I mean, I probably didn't get much out of the historical side of those shows other than I got inspired by the actual seeing of the equipment in use. And then Star Wars happened. And I'll be honest, as a kid, I didn't build much Star Wars stuff because honestly, the Star Wars stuff weren't great kits. I built the original Star Wars, like Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. And man, the fit of the wings were heavy. The fit to the body wasn't very good. And little Doug didn't understand that you don't put extra glue on to try to make them stay, so that those joints just got soft and I could never get the solar panels to stay.
Is that the AMT kit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just a flat, I mean, it just kind of barely fit into the shape, and it was just one flat piece against a flat piece. And I put all kinds of glue on it because last time it wouldn't stay. So I put extra glue on it, and then it just became a soft mess and would never, ever stay.
It's probably still soft.
Yeah,
it probably is in whatever landfill it's in.
that shuttle Tidarium kit from MPC, where the wings were so heavy and they made them like a toy, so that body you'd put glue and glue and glue and it would never dry.
Yeah. The first time I remember actually seeing anything on screen where I said I want to build that was actually, I mean, I'd later decide I wanted to build it, but at the moment I saw it was Battlestar Pegasus from the reboot Battlestar Galactica 2005-ish. When I saw Pegasus, I was like, oh man, I want to build one of those. And I have it. I have the kit. Still haven't built it, but that's for another day.
You talk about movies just inspiring you in general. I mean, as a young kid, the movie that I remember really blowing me away, my mom took me, was The Right Stuff. That movie just really kind of blew me away, and then going back to movies we love, even though they're not great, like Where Eagles Dare, and Kelly's Heroes, and, movies like that. I know they're not accurate, but yeah, just so much fun.
But if you can go to somewhere they're reusing old footage, there was some new footage for it, I know, but they did do a lot of stock footage in, I think it was Battle of Britain. With the Spitfires, there was some great stuff in there. That kind of inspires you to want to build a Spitfire, if nothing else will. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I echo Battle of Britain. That's one of my all-time faves. I could just watch it. I know some people think the gunshots and the explosions are kind of corny here and there, but man, something about those, essentially air armadas in film is really, I mean, that's the reason why I own probably the Qatari Spitfire and many others, and triggered my love for the elliptical wing. As we're talking about Hollywood, I think it's appropriate we'll go over to Grant next, who lives right next to Hollywood, and get your feelings on this topic.
Well, first of all, I'm feeling really old when you guys are talking about being young and watching like Saving Private Ryan and stuff like that. First of all, I'm an old movie buff, I guess. When I started, it was the 70s. So you had, Patton, GI Combat, all these old fantastic movies. And I'm like Doug, I didn't care what they were. They were just tanks and they were just fun. Thing that really, really motivated me the most, I would have to say, and it wasn't a movie or a TV show, it was Monogram Models, 1/32nd scale. Shep Payne would have these flyers inside of each one of the kits. So he did one for his Sherman Calliope. He did one for the half tracks. And those were, at the time, that was the only kind of stuff you ever saw in writing about. At least I didn't. I saw that was those flyers, and they were fantastic. I remember just sitting there every Saturday and Sunday, just reading them over and over and over and over again. And because we didn't have the internet, of course. You didn't have, the magazines were very rare. They were in the big cities, and I grew up in a very small town, so we didn't have that. I didn't have access to that kind of stuff. So for me, that was my motivation. Going forward, I think a lot of my motivations started really getting for fantasy started with the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy. That was, for me, I had read the books when I was younger. I read them all and then read them again. But when I saw Peter Jackson's version of it on screen or on DVD, that really kind of lit a motivation to do more fantasy for myself. That was something that it was really kind of a changer for me. I was overseas for part of that, and I didn't have a lot of room, so it was really kind of cool. I could do this kind of stuff, but at the time there was really nothing around. There was some metal figures. Games Workshop had some stuff at the time, but that really kind of lit my fire for the fantasy. Do I like to copy stuff? No. I mean, I like to go my own way, like TJ, and if it's like some of you others, I'd like to do what I want to do with it. I like bright colors, so I like to bring that into the environment that I'm working in. And then again, with the birth of the internet and stuff like that's a huge thing for all of us. I think that we kind of sidestepped a little bit, is that there's so much information out there now, that any motivational pictures that we have never seen before, and everyday stuff pops up that we've never seen before, and photos of Shermans. I mean, I don't know how there's pictures of Shermans that we have not seen, but there are pictures out there that we have not seen. So, I think it's all great motivation. Can I pinpoint one thing? Not really, but I think it's just a culmination of a life kind of that I've lived with this hobby, that new things motivate me as they go along.
Oh, that's great feedback, Grant. Like you said, I think there's pieces in everything that we see and absorb and take into scale. So love the story there. Well, thank you all for your contributions. I think this was a worthy discussion. A lot of fun with Masters of the Air that just came out. I think, a lot of our listeners can associate with how we feel, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you built a model from the movies, if you've been inspired by the movies to build a certain type of model, please share it on the Facebook group. We love seeing them, and we love sharing them and talking about them. So with that, that's a perfect lead in to Scott, who's going to give us our next segment.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Plastic Posse podcast is sponsored by Tankcraft, makers of the highest quality cutting mats for your modeling bench. Tankcraft cutting mats are heavy-duty, self-healing, come in 2 awesome sizes, and have World War II tank and aircraft blueprint-style drawings on them. Spread out your next build on an olive green M4 Sherman or Dunkelgelb King Tiger mat, and they've got aircraft too. So check out all the designs and also their range of unique modeling tools over at tankcraft.com. That's TANKRAFT.com. Don't forget, Plastic Posse listeners can use the code POSSE15 to get 15% off your first order.
All right. Yeah, let's go through some models that caught our individual eyes over on the Plastic Posse group. Again, if you're not a member, over on Facebook, there's the Plastic Posse group page. You can post your work, make comments on other people's work, engage with other members of the community. So go over there and join if you haven't. But let's start with TJ. TJ, what's a model that maybe caught your eye?
I don't think this is the first time I've chosen this one, because I know he's been working on it for a while. But all that hard work is paying off, because my choice is Ken Childress's Mark 44. That thing is freaking dope. I love it so much. He's got like some sort of World War II-ish PTO, U.S. Marine Corps camouflage on it. He scratched a flamethrower for the arm. It's so good. God, I love it so much. And I think he just posted, I think maybe this morning or maybe yesterday afternoon. I actually got a picture, as he has not posted yet, that he sent me while we were recording this about 10 minutes ago. Of a cool little detail, and he was asking my input on. So yeah, luckily I get to see all those pictures, I think, before everyone else does, because he sends them to me and we talk about them and then he posts them. But man, they're freaking good. He's hoping to have that thing done for Atlanta, because I really want to see it in person. So if not, it'll definitely be at the Amps Nats. But yeah, hopefully it goes to Atlanta, because I really want to see it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful model. He's doing a fantastic job on that for sure. Grant, what's a model that caught your eye?
Actually, it's a repost from you. Dan Sansky did a Whippet, which is the main kit. It's a beautiful rendition. Did his own springs with a wire, the weathering on it. And I'll go back to something that is near and dear to our hearts. The tracks on it are beautiful. The tracks really turned out well. And the whole vehicle pictures, it's just a really, really well done, beat up looking Whippet that looks like it's been there for a little while, and really definitely catches that look of a used vehicle.
Yeah, those whippets really show off those tracks to good effect for sure. John, what model or models have caught your eye?
Yeah, I want to stick on Dan Sankey's Whippet, though. We had the pleasure of seeing it in person at SMC. It won gold in the Masters category. Absolutely fantastic piece. I encourage everyone to go look at it. It's not only, it's a wonderful Whippet, but the whole scene itself is really well done. I think I want to call out on the vehicle itself. You don't see Whippets with the canvas covers over the tracks too often, and he frickin' nailed it. And then also it has carrier pigeons that they're releasing, and I think there's at least 6 or 7 of them. And what's really interesting, if you can find a picture, you can kind of see inside. He actually scratch built a cage inside the Whippet to hold the carrier pigeon. So major shout out to Dan Sankey. That's an incredible piece, well deserved and well honored at SMC this year, and I can't wait to see his next one. For what I saw that I love, and I'm sure I'll get some abuse for this, especially from Steve Baker, is Sully Scale Models, Fairy Gannet, arguably one of the best British aircraft ever built, right behind the Spitfire. She's big, she's beautiful, and so ugly. I love it. I can see Jensen nodding his head in agreement, and he is in firm support of this. So, all the other Britons over there, Jensen is a big proponent of the Gannet. He loves it. I know when we went to the Duxford Air Museum, there was one thing he looked forward to seeing the most, and that was the Fairy Gannet. And I can't wait until he shares his picture online of his love affair with that aircraft. But, going back to Sully's, I think he just nailed it. It's a fantastic piece. If I was going to build a Gannet, that's probably what I'd do, is showing it in a derelict state, because there's some great examples in the UK that Jensen loves, as I mentioned. But, he's done everything from the carabiner to holding the wings together to moss and kind of grimy stains and streaks on the vehicle. And then also the canopy as well being shattered and looking inside the derelict cockpit. So Sully, fantastic work. Really big shout out to you. Certainly an inspiration for that Airfix kit. And I know Jensen is so excited about the Gannet.
He does love a Gannet. I think if I understand it right, there's a Snuggie coming with Gannets all over it. I can't wait to see him deploy that. That'll be great. All right, Doug.
I'm sorry. Okay. I have chosen for mine, Bill Huffman has submitted a World War II trench diorama, and I was very impressed with it when I first started looking at the pictures. Very well detailed, kind of a long trench, different angles in it, different things going on, like a first aid station and some figures he's been working on. The trench is nice and deep. It's got both sides. There's so much detail, and I was trying to figure out where all the detail came from until he showed us a picture of the diorama from the side from a distance. It's 3 levels of diorama. It's the trench with tunnels cut underneath it, and it is stunning. It is so cool. I'm really impressed with what he did. The amount of time it must have taken to put those levels together and make it look as good as it does, with the little hand crank elevator thingy, wooden elevator in it, and everything. Very, very cool. I'm very impressed.
Have you been watching his video series? He puts out basically on Fridays. He does about an hour little live session where he talks about putting different elements onto his pieces and such. It's really fun you can find them on YouTube. So they're recorded. They're sitting there. So I'll give you some insight into how he actually puts everything together.
Well, I haven't, but I will now.
Yeah, scale model craft, I think, is his YouTube handle. I don't think anybody uses the vertical like Bill does. He's just and his cabinetry skills and woodworking skills, really. I mean, his pieces are just really unique and one of a kind and just really, really nice. All right, Jensen, I know that you're a little sad because the Gannet's been taken, but was there anything else that caught your eye on the Plastic Posse?
Yeah, it was as soon as I saw the Gannet was already chosen, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I found Matteo Reich's Airfix 172nd Spitfire just really clean, really nice. It's just very visually pleasing to look at. Just the freehand camouflage he's done on it. I keep forgetting how small 172nd Spitfires are. They are pretty tiny. Really clean, smooth paint. Is like, I don't know if he goes through and sands each step, like polishes it, because the paint is silky smooth. Really nice panel line wash on it. The decals are nice. It's just a very clean build. And I think, me personally, when I see 172nd scale aircraft, especially like single prop, I like to see them that clean and well built and just not overly weathered, because because they're so small, you want it to stand out as it does, just on its own. And he's done that beautifully. And I always forget how good Mateo is as a modeler. I followed for the models and I stayed for the memes because he's a really funny guy. But yeah, just a beautiful build. Really, really nice to see.
Yeah, I agree. That was a nice little piece. And like you said, when I was following along, I kept forgetting it was 1/72nd scale as well. Kept thinking, I wonder if that's the Edward or the Tamiya kit, in 1/48 scale. All right, Rick, what's a model that caught your eye on the posse?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to choose one artist, but two models from the same fellow. And his name is Soshiro Giyashi. I hope I'm saying that right. He's got two models here, basically built with the same two kits. So he's got this mini art Chevy. So it's one of the new mini art little panel vans where he's put a Greyhound turret on the back. And then he's also got the Greyhound, which was the donate car for the first build, which he's also reconfigured. And he's got this theme going on called Civil War. So two kits sharing parts back and forth, kit bashing as such, finished out just wonderfully. They're very creative. I really enjoy those. They got plastic chairs on them and girls and big giant guns and all sorts of great markings and such. But I just love the whole idea of kind of a thematic thing that he's putting together here. And they stuck out in my mind. So he gets my shout out.
Yeah, that Greyhound with the dual wheel and tire in the front as well as the back. That turned out really, really great. Yeah. It's really super creative. So I'm enjoying his work. Excellent. Well, I'm gonna talk about two briefly. The first one is our friend Adam Jackson. He's also one of our newest Patreons. Thank you very much, Adam. But he did a Grumman Avenger, and he did some pretty wild pre-shading. And I don't think he had done it before. But when he painted the tricolor on it, the pre-shading really worked. It really showed through. And I think he did a really good job. So nice job, Adam, on that. That Avenger is just about finished. It's really, really looking good. And then another one that caught my eye, I'm not sure if it's a nut rocker or nutcracker, but one of those hover tanks by Michael Pena. I hope I said that right. Really, really like the weathering on this. It's really gritty, really, the weathering is like really, I'm trying to think of a good word for it, just gritty and dirty. And the turret is much cleaner than the hull is. I just really like his approach. I think he's using a lot of oils and different things like that. So yeah, I thought that was a really, really nice model. All right, well, let's move over to Grant, and he's going to talk to us about upcoming model events.
All right, everybody. We have the AMPS Atlanta Model Figure Annual Show on February 9th through the 11th at the Hilton Atlanta Northeast in Peachtree Corners, Georgia. Next, we have Model Fiesta 42, which will be held Saturday, February 10th at the New Brunswick Convention Center in New Brunswick, Texas. This year's theme is All Things British. More details are available at modelfiesta.com. The Mid-Michigan Model Makers present 4M Mayhem Show on Saturday, February 3rd at Saginaw Valley State University from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Gundams are welcome, and this year's theme is Original TV Series. For more information, please check out www.midmichiganmodelmakers.com. Then we have the Fresno IPMS Scale Model presents the Sprue Bowl post-Super Bowl bash on February 17th in Fresno City College main cafeteria. General admission is free. You can check out more details over at the Fresno IPMS Facebook page. Our friend Rick Cooper is one of the team that's putting this on. Good luck, guys. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just a little bit confused there. Next, we have the 2024 Model Manium Show will be held on February 17th and 18th at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, Washington. Jim, we're all coming. Check out the details at Facebook and the Northwest Scale Modelers page. The 2024 Old Dominion Open is on February 24th at Richmond Raceway Complex in Richmond, Virginia. On March 16th and 17th, Scala 2024, the Norwegian National Show and Competition will be held at the Air Force Museum. I'm not even going to try and do this abbreviation. The venue is a short drive north of Oslo and even shorter trip from the international airport if you are traveling. The theme special category will be finished subjects. Made in Ohio will be held March 23rd and 24th at the University of Dayton. Doors open both days at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. More details can be found at ipmssddayton.com. Heritage Con 15, or is that 20? I don't care. I'm not good with numbers. Sorry.
It's 15. Greg.
Yeah. See, I got it that time. I know my Roman numerals, I guess. Heritage Con 15 will be held in the Canada Warplane Heritage Museum Sunday, March 24th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. More details at IPMS Hamilton Canadian Warplane Heritage Modeling Club Facebook page. Comedy Fest 2024, Eggplanes and Chibis. Hey, Jensen, there you go. Will be held on Saturday, March 23rd at 9 a.m. at the Wings Over the Rockies Exploration of Flight Center.
The BuffCon 39 Scale Model Show will be held Sunday, April 7th at the Knights Event Center in Buffalo, New York. Doors open at 9 a.m. and they feature a bunch of new categories for juniors, as well as new categories for Gundam, Gunpla, and Warhammer. You can contact Jeff Keenan, or for more details, you can go to ipmsniagarafrontier.com. The AMPS 2024 International Convention will be held April 11th through the 13th at the Century Center in South Bend, Indiana. Details, of course, are at www.amps-armor.org, and the posse will be there. The Tulsa Modelers Forum and the Tulsa Miniature Motor Works are proud to present the Route 66 Model Expo. It'll be held Saturday, April 20th at Park Church of Christ in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You can check with Casey Gray on Facebook for more details. The Houston Model Mania Show will be held May 4th at the Stafford Center in Stafford, Texas, and has dual themes, May the 4th be with you, and also adversaries. They have a great vendor area, an awesome facility, and they are going to have a special Subarashi Mecha Award for the best mecha. They are also trying out a gold, silver, bronze system for this show. Good luck with that, guys. The Best of the West Model Show and Convention will be held Saturday, May 18th at the Orleans Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. This show is put on by a group of 5 different modeling clubs and runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sounds like a lot of fun. You can contact Jay Bergeron on Facebook for more details. Also on May 18th, the Silver Wing Clubs in Sacramento present SilverCon 2024. This year's theme is 1944. Doors open at 9 a.m. The show will be held at the Town and Country Lutheran Church in Sacramento. For more details, check out IPMS Silver Wings on Facebook or contact Drew Savage. And last, I have got a great announcement, something we've been working on, a group of us here in Salt Lake City for a very long time. I'm pleased to announce a brand new hobby show in Salt Lake City. It's the first annual Rocky Mountain Expo. This will be an open format show and AMPS combination. It's been organized by several great modelers and friends, including Sean Earl, Josh Buck, Brandon Mickelson, Barry Biediger from Small Subjects, and Cameron Corliss. There will be several scale modeling clubs in the Salt Lake City and Intermountain region that will be participating and helping out. We're pretty excited about it. It'll be a gold, silver, bronze open system, and we're going to announce more details soon, so stay tuned for that. But again, June 22nd in Salt Lake City.
Well done, guys. That's great to hear that news.
Thanks, Rick. We'll have to see if we can bribe you to get you down there. That'll be awesome.
Sure thing.
All right. Now it's time for our main feature. I sat down recently with Malcolm Childs and James Skiffins. We talked about their Just Making Conversation podcast, as well as the Model Officers Mess and Models for Heroes. We're very, very excited. Just another reminder, first weekend in March, we'll have our annual 48 and 48 hour build for the Models for Heroes charity. Last year was a great event. We had a blast. There'll be online building events globally. The posse will be, again, working with the Model Geeks for the North American part of this event. And so keep an eye on our Facebook page as well as the Model Officers Mess Facebook page. So without further ado, here's that interview. Hope you like it. Oh, look at James. You can actually see him getting on his best behavior. You hit
You're watching the right camera.
You talk about the right James. Best behavior.
Welcome in, everybody. This is Scott. I am joined by two of our good friends from the UK. First of all, Mr. Malcolm Childs from his shed. How are you doing, Malcolm?
I'm okay. There's a storm a-brewing, as they said in Mary Poppins. There's a storm a-brewing around here, and it's making my shed creak and wane more than I've ever heard it done before. We were actually recording our Just Making Conversation podcast a couple of hours ago before this, and yeah, James was asking what that noise was, and it was the sound of my shed being torn apart. so hopefully my noise suppression is working, and I won't be just sitting here in the middle of my garden with no shed around me when the storm's gone. And hopefully also the power remains on. But I'm fine other than that. How are you?
I am well, and now I am hoping that the contractor that you used to make your shed did everything to code.
Oh, well, I don't trust him at all, because that was me. Yeah, it's definitely going to go disappearing.
Also joining us for our merrymaking is the one, the only Mr. James Skiffins. James, how are you?
I'm not too bad. I've had a rough few weeks through illness, but you caught me on a good day, so that's handy. And apparently, I'm on my best behavior.
Well, we shall see. I mean, as long as you make your best effort, that's all that counts.
Oh, you've lowered the bar already.
Let's start out with Just Making Conversation. I got to say, it's one of my favorite podcasts and, one that I never miss. But, maybe start with you, James. How are things going, and what are some recent topics du jour?
Yes, the podcast is doing absolutely amazingly, actually. We still haven't beaten the BBC's Gardener's World podcast. Not that I should really let it go, if I'm honest. But we're up there. The last few episodes have rocked us both in the viewing or listening charts that we read. They're probably skewed a little bit towards us in some respect or other. You just do a search for us and no one else, and it comes up with some magical figures. So listing wise, we broke the top 100. And I can see Malcolm scrolling, so I think he's looking for the most recent thing. And if he's not, then I've just given him a tip. But yeah, we were quite blown away with that. And then, lo and behold, the next, set that we read, I wouldn't say it was the next week. I can't remember. It might have been 2 or 3 weeks later. We were above the 50s in the top chart. So I think we were well above the 50s actually. But yes, it's amazing. The podcast itself, it's great fun. I love talking to Malcolm anyway. We don't do it enough through work and all the rest of it. But it's great to sit down and pick a subject. And as always, we try our best to find something that's a little bit different, a little bit out there. And mainly, most of the time, which is most of the hobby, stuff that we don't know anything about.
Well, I really like the presentation of stuff you don't know much about, but Malcolm, you get to put up with this guy day to day, but what's it like working with James, and what do you think he really brings to the table? What's his biggest skill?
What's it like working with James every day? I think I deserve a medal, so I'm waiting for that to happen, to be honest. What is like working with James? It's easy peasy, because he's funny every time I talk to him. He's a good modeler as well, which helps. He is honest, and what you see is what you get with James. So when you're talking to him, it's easy peasy. Doesn't bother about worrying about the edit at all, so I don't have to have questions about whether I should leave that in or what. I just completely ignore anything he has to say about that. So that's easy. But also he knows a lot of things about a lot of stuff, which is great, which is really useful. So when we're just picking a subject, we can just talk for hours. And the amount of stuff that goes on the edit floor, as they say, is quite vast. We can talk for 3 hours to make a 1 hour podcast, and it's a riot. It's really fun. Really, really good fun. And it's a kind of a joy to be able to record it and put it out so other people can read. Read? No, they don't read it. They listen to it.
Yeah, read,
yeah, it's great.
read,
It's
view, listen. Yeah, whatever it is. One thing I do want to say is, all joking aside, is these podcasts. I think the magic ingredient more than anything else is chemistry, and you guys really have a chemistry, a friendship, a bond. And, kind of maybe Malcolm staying with you first. But when did you know that this might be good podcast fodder, the banter that you and James have? Or, when did you have the idea initially?
Oh, gosh. I think I have to ask James as well, because I think it was lockdown. I think we were chatting and we would just stir crazy and we were making each other laugh. And I thought, well, we should put this out. Other people should listen to this. I mean, just as evidence, really. Things I had to listen to. But I think that's what it was. I think, and there was also a bit of a gap as well. And Scale Model Shedder just had finished, which was a shame. And I really enjoyed that. I think they did 5 or 6 episodes, and it was great listening to that from a British perspective. And we felt there was a bit of a gap, so we kind of leapt in, I suppose, without any knowledge of what we were doing. We do everything for free. We do everything half-assed and half-cocked, and at the last minute. And for some reason, we're still carrying on. I think it's because we both enjoy it. We're both enjoying doing it. I mean, incidentally, we're taking a break currently, and we will be going back to recording for season 4 soon. And I really hope that'll be as soon as possible, because I miss miss chatting. But we all need a break sometimes, don't we? But yeah, that's what I reckon. That's my answer anyway. See what James says.
Yeah, let's see. Get the fact checks now. James, what's your version of all that?
Well, I can't confirm or deny that during lockdown I was in someone else's shed in close proximity. But what I can reveal is that the main reason it started was because Malcolm said we should do it. And he wouldn't let me out of the shed until he did, until he started it. So, no, I think, I've known Malcolm. I don't actually know how many years. It just feels like a lifetime. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a positive year. Stop waving at me.
5 years, I think it is.
Yeah. No, I get that. I can count 5. It's when you start adding more than another digit, and then I'm in trouble. Anyway, yeah, I've known him I've known him since around about the time we set up the charity is when we first bumped into each other in some form. The podcast was, we were discussing over the internet about models for heroes, and obviously you couldn't do face to face. What could we do, or what could be done? Not what could we do, because I don't take any ownership for what happened. And a few ideas were bumped around. The lives and stuff that Models for Heroes are now known for so very well, was a suggestion, and we worked a little bit together to make that become something, along with all the other people that were there at the beginning, and thought it was a great idea. So the podcast seemed a relatively organic thing to come from our friendship. And it is very weird Malcolm said we can record for 3 hours. It's very true. But the problem is that while we're recording, we end up sniggering at each other because we're having the same thought process, which is the worrying part. And that's why we go off on tangents, is because, I'm thinking something, he's thinking the same thing, but he generally verbalizes it more than I do. And then we just talk about it. Yeah. It's a wonderful treat to have a friend that you can feel like you've known forever and sit and talk a load of old toffee, bend a bit of plastic here and there. And I think that's where it really came from, was that we were doing the sessions, and having a giggle and a laugh. And, we enjoyed that part of it. And that just seemed like an organic thing to come from it.
Oh, no, I remember what it was. I remember. It wasn't we were having a giggle or a laugh. You and I were doing the worst thing we've ever done. That was a paper model. Do you remember?
I can't believe you're going to try and put me through that trauma again.
Sorry, I didn't realise it was going to be a therapy session. No, it was a shared hatred of making things out of paper. Yeah, so
we challenged each other, didn't we? That's what
yeah.
happened. Was it you or I that challenged you? I can't remember.
Most likely you. But I
know. I remember this. What it was is you had that model to start with, if you remember correctly. And you said, I've never done one. I don't know what to do. And I went, you know what? Come on, let's do a group build. Between me and you, we'll do a paper model. And you went, that's a great idea. So yeah, that. It was, and that was, I think, part of the shared hatred and the conversations that we had, and thought processes, became pretty obvious that we are on the same sort of plane, which is quite low down, in fairness, in the food chain. But yeah.
Have you ever built paper models, Scott?
No, it always has seemed to me to be a format that would just cause me to say bad words and, have higher blood pressure than I already do.
No. I really think, and I've said this loads of times, I really think every modeler, I mean, don't get me wrong, because it's going to seem a bit weird that I'm saying this given the fact that we had so much trauma, but every modeler should do a paper model at some point. And I don't mean you get a piece of A4 and you fold it up into an airplane, because we've all done that as kids. Get a proper kit and follow the instructions and make a paper model. It can be anything you like. There's loads of different choices out there. Give it a go. And the main reason I ask people to do that is because I want to understand whether I just hate them because I hate them, or whether there is actually factual evidence to be able to prove that they are just a nightmare.
Do you want to force that onto other people, though?
I think, Malcolm, in all honesty, I think that is something in which every modeler should experience.
I see.
The reason being, if you can overcome a paper model, there is nothing that a model kit that you normally do will phase you in any way, shape or form. So yes, I am making people have a bit of pain, but it's pain therapy to make sure that the next time you get, I can't think of a model company to boot, a Revel kit, that is a nightmare kit. You've got all the skills and the patience and the lower blood pressure because you've experienced the worst that can ever be.
Yeah. At least it's not a paper model, is what you could say. And I think we did say that a lot.
We did.
And I remember the first 2 minutes that we were doing it, and we did it live. I cut my finger on the ruler, so it was pain, I tried to clean the ruler with my hand. It just slices like a sword. I don't know what I was doing, but
I've never wanted to get off alive quicker in my life.
Well, I wasn't going to be alive if I bled too much.
If you think about it, paper models are kind of like the opposite. We build a 3-dimensional model and then we take pictures of it and make it 2D. It's sort of like the opposite of that. You're making a 3-dimensional model out of a 2D medium, I think that's what makes me kind of, how do I make a circle out of this piece of paper?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I did an Ed 209, which is the science fiction Robocop robot thing, which I have a small miniature of here. So it's got one of these guys. Yeah. And it was big. It was really big, but because it was paper, it didn't have any structural strength. So it just fell over all the time and crumpled all the time. So I had to build the inner structure. You didn't get that with plastic. So it was lovely once you finished the paper model to go back to plastic and go, at least it's not paper models. And I think that's where our relationship birthed, over a piece of paper.
So
soggy piece of paper.
Soggy.
A relationship burst over a piece of paper. Wow, there's a quote for you.
You can edit that out, can't you, Scott?
That sounds mysteriously like a wedding and the pieces of paper licensing involved, So moving forward from when this all started, your show has continued to evolve. It's one of the things that I really like about it, but you guys have done a lot more, interviewing and kind of bringing people outside of just the two of you to maybe have conversations with. How do you think that's really kind of changed the show? You think it's changed it for the better or the worst? Maybe talk about that.
Well, yeah, is the short answer. It has. We've been quite, I don't know, cute's the right word for either of us, for that matter. But we've purposely chosen people that are not necessarily out there, if that makes sense. The idea being is that one of my passions has always been from all of the things in which I've done is to do something a little bit out there, a little bit different, and to try and increase people's profile or confidence. Now, obviously, let's talk about Art Duck, for example. The wooden train, model guy. He doesn't need any confidence. Trust me, he's got every bit of confidence in what he's doing. But it's quite fascinating to see something that I didn't really come across before, a different angle to the hobby, etc., etc. And the feedback from him having that moment, that chat, and I'm not suggesting for a second we've got millions of viewers all going, here, let me go on the website to Art Duck. Oh yes, lovely. Oh. I'm not suggesting that, but they're the sort of things in which we've really, really enjoyed. I mean, Gizmo, 3D Gizmo is a classic example where a gentleman's doing some amazing work with 3D machines, some really awesome stuff that just is not the norm. And the impact for that conversation and where he's going this year, etc., is the trajectory is looking amazing for him. And to think, I mean, this is my personal view. I'm sure Malcolm would share it, but to think we are a very small part of that process, gives me an amazing kick, because, that probably would have happened anyway. But the fact we've had a small influence in letting people know about it. I mean, I've certainly had personal messages, the podcasts have messages saying, I didn't know these guys exist. This is amazing. I've been looking at this for ages. And where do I get hold of this and get hold of that? And yeah, so raising someone's profile is pretty important to me personally. And the podcast is a great way of doing it. What would you say, Malcolm?
Probably damages their profile, to be honest, being on our show. Like scraping the barrel. Oh, God, no one else has asked me on, so maybe I should go on there too. I don't know. I don't consider that. I've never thought about that at all, to be honest. But I think I like to just talk to people that are fun to talk to, who are passionate about the hobby and passionate about what they do, is they like making stuff and they're good at making stuff. And to eke that out of them. And also chat to people who like dick jokes as well, who have a giggle with. And I think it's nice for the audience to sort of get in on that as well. Although some people think we're being childish, which is fine. Vote with your pause button, can't you? Yeah, I think recently, obviously, we've done more interviews and less kind of topical podcasts. But I don't know. I think we enjoy both types, don't we? And we had plenty of people to interview and talk to, so we just kept it up like that. If someone who wasn't going to turn up on an interview for some reason, we would then just go, hey, why don't we talk about the size of your bench? Yeah, that'll do, and that'll become the podcast. And we probably wouldn't talk about that at all. So, remember, the Just Making Conversation is pretty much made this 5 seconds before we hit record. We really decide what we're going to do right there and then, and we write a script together of the exact minute we're going to start recording, and then we write the intro and the outro, and then the rest of it is just yak. And then I dig out some sort of semblance of sense in the edit. It's just good fun. That's basically it. I don't think we've got any. Go on. Sorry. I don't think we got any sort of design over, helping people so much so that, but if they get help, they're great.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what I was alluding to, was that the interviews are a more recent addition to our podcast. And we haven't sat down and gone, right, okay, we're just doing interviews because that works better or anything like that. We genuinely will, as Malcolm says, sit and write the script, which is basically the intros and the outros, the bits that you hear me fumbling over in my speech as I'm trying to read.
No, you don't. You sound eloquent and like you know what you're doing.
I don't know what button you use to do that bit of editing, but fair enough. Because it isn't like that at the time.
There isn't a button, unfortunately.
I think it's AI, right?
AI, don't get started on AI. Oh my God. We have a plan for that, which we might let you into. The interviews are a newer section as such, but we like just picking up bits and pieces. And like I say, we write that little intro, we have a chat, And then we may, if we're really organised, and this is the level of our organisation, to say, are you free in 2 weeks' time or a week's time, or whenever it is we can fit in a slot to record? And what should we discuss? Oh, I don't know. We'll figure that out on the day. We do have a list. In fairness, we do have a list of things that we like to talk to or talk about, but we genuinely forget it's there.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, there's something to be said for preparation, and there's something to be said for spontaneity, right? James, I want to know what has the podcast added to your modeling? What's the benefit of doing just making conversation?
So the benefit to me personally on my modeling, it does, it just helps with the enthusiasm of what I'm doing from time to time. I mean, we never, as a rule, we never really went, oh, what's on your bench? But we've been doing that a bit of late, which is quite interesting when we're doing stuff. But yeah, so that sort of helps in a way. The podcast for me mainly is the chance to sit and talk to Malcolm. And we often will bounce things off each other, in our minds, et cetera, about ideas and different bits and pieces, or, you know, I'm doing this. What do you think of this? Have I done this right? What do you think I could do to improve it? Blah, 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 blah. So that is my main benefit, really. The fact that, you go to a model show and everyone goes, oh, you must be Malcolm because you're hitting the roof. And ignoring me because they don't know who I am, is quite funny. I'm saying that with fun involved. Yeah, it's quite funny. I mean, Telford this year was mind blowing. And I mean, obviously Malcolm had experienced that the show before. I couldn't make it, so I didn't. But this year was mind blowing. The fact that people come up to us and talk to us that you'd interacted with, but not actually face to face. The fact that people have gone out and designed T-shirts for us, a hobnob survey, and also the other thing, I think actually, if I'm thinking about it, the most exciting thing in which I love from the podcast over the last couple of years is the mystery build we do, is to come up with something zany, something everybody hates us. It's just like, what the hell are you doing? What are you trying to make us do? And the fact that people actually take that on board and get involved is, you know, I've done group builds for years, and you get like 50 odd people. Yeah, I'll get involved. You get 10 people that do it, 6 people that finish, you know, whereas we're talking effectively in someone's ear hole going, you really want to go and do a tarp build, don't you? Well, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do that. It actually is it's got to be the most joy out of a lot of the process we do. It gives me an immense joy to think that we have actually, for 2 years running, had one of our mystery builds in a national competition. That just blows my mind because that's hilarious. But yeah, that's it really. It's just another part of the hobby that this hobby for me has got so more exciting because I'm not sat in a room by myself, listening to some inane music, putting plastic together. I'm talking to people online. I'm involved in groups. I'm doing a podcast. Don't get me wrong, the schedule can be quite hellish at times. Sometimes it's a lot to juggle. But yeah, that's mainly what it gives me.
Malcolm, same question. What is the podcast specifically added to your modeling?
I wouldn't have been invited to the Airfix launch of the Sea King this year if it wasn't for JMC and the Spitfire factory as well, where they're making the Spitfire. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for JMC. And that's just like, you know, little Malcolm, little 8-year-old Malcolm was peeing his pants because he gets to go to this really, really cool thing. And I was saying to James that I'm not, if they tell us anything that they shouldn't be telling us, I'm just going to tell everyone because I won't be able to keep it in. The reason they don't tell us anything. But it was bloody brilliant. And it was just awesome. And the tarp build and the nut builds that we did, the amount of people that really, really enjoyed it, and the amount of people that said to you're crazy. What's with this tarp build nonsense? And then someone was sending me a picture going, I found a tarp. I was on the lake the other day and there's a tarp over this boat. I thought you'd like to see it. I was like, oh, was it tied down? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it was tied down. It must have been tied down. It probably had bungee ropes. Maybe it had eyelets. I'm not sure. Anyway, there was really loads of moss on it. I might and then they would start to think, and you can tell in their head, they're going, I could actually redo that. I could do a tarp build. I might be able to, it's a ridiculous idea, but I love the idea of doing a tarp build. And people were, on our Facebook group about the tarps, people were sending in pictures of their, tarp a day, and it's just nuts, really.
Yeah, that's a great thing to highlight is that I do like to overpromise, somewhat. And we set the tarp group up, and I'm gonna do a tarp a day. And I managed 3 or 4 days, I think it was.
Yes.
No, I do a tarp a week. A couple. Well, anyway, the group took over. They just, James hasn't done it. I'll do it for him. So it's like having a community of producers going, that James is bloody useless. I'll do it. And yeah, it's so amusing. And we had the same with the walnut build, everybody I spoke to when I first mentioned it was like, what? You're crazy. Oh, who would do it? I just Googled that. Oh my God. and then all of a sudden you're like, where can I get hold of walnuts? Well, funny you should say that. Malcolm's got a lorry load that he only ordered 3, but only one lorry load turned up. Yeah. So, and
yes,
and that's even more fun actually. We've had for the last month, we've had several conversations of what we're doing for 2024, what we're going to do, and we're both throwing ideas at each other. And no, that's crazy. That's great. I quite like that idea. So we do it ourselves. So it's good.
Yeah, we do. But yeah, it's the people. I guess it's what's improved my modelling enjoyment. It's just seeing what other people are doing and just having fun with the hobby. Really, really having fun with it. It's been silly and being wildly childish about the whole thing.
So, what's been the biggest challenge, Malcolm?
I'll just step out of the room for a minute. Sorry.
Yeah. Biggest challenge: time, commitment to people who want to listen to your next episode. People want to hear what you've got to say next, and we want to hear what you've done, and then editing it down to something that you're happy with and want to release. That's the challenge. Is time. Yeah. If I did the podcast full time, then that would be great. I'll just hire an editor and I can go off and do much more stuff.
You wouldn't be able to cope with someone doing the editing.
I don't know. I've never had it. He's never offered, Scott. I don't know how that would be, but it would be lovely if it, time, I would say. I imagine you can, you probably are the same, Scott.
We had a recent podcast roundtable that will be coming out soon on both of our podcasts, but that's kind of something we talked about was the fact that none of us are getting rich, but also just the, tongue in cheek, of course, but also the amount of time and that it takes. So yeah, definitely. James, what about you? What's been the biggest drawback or challenge that JMC's brought you?
Yeah, time. I would reflect that. Yeah, time is for both of us to try and find a time in which works. I mean, I work shift work, so that's one challenge. But I also don't find out until 4 days notice I get of what I'm doing the following week. So my shifts can be all over the place all week sometimes. So yeah, that is definitely one of them. But also one for me personally is the challenge that the thought of doing a podcast gives. I'll explain that. That's really badly explained. So I suffer from time to time with anxiety, and I do get quite anxious before we do recordings. I even to the point which I've never really admitted to Malcolm, but even to the point of when we're scheduling it, it's like, I don't know if I want to do that. I think he gets it, but he just doesn't hit me over the head too often. So anxiety, and I'm happy to freely admit that I am dyslexic. So reading from a computer screen seems to be a really easy thing to do. But I will pronunciate my worms quite a lot. So, I get quite concerned by that too. So yeah, but they're all good things. Do you know what I mean? I've always been somebody who, like, for example, you're looking at me now. I haven't got any glasses on. I do need corrective stuff for my vision. I wear contacts, and the main reason I wear contacts is because my nan used to put drops in her eyes. I may be very squeamish, never liked being anything near my eyes. It freaked me out. And I thought I must overcome this. So I decided to put contact lenses in my eyes. But that's the sort of person I am. If I come across a challenge, I generally will not run away from it. I will go running towards it and overcome it, because then I'm empowered. But sometimes having that empowerment for anxiety is difficult. So the only thing that gets me through it is Malcolm.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that's maybe why these podcasts, I think, are so compelling. Because, I've said this before, but the idea of doing an audio podcast on a medium that is 100% visual seems daft, right? It does. But I think the element that you just mentioned, and I'd like to get your thoughts maybe on this, but I think there's an element in our modeling where overcoming a challenge or doing something that we're intimidated by is kind of rewarding. Does that make any sense at all?
It makes all sense. I mean, the main thing I love about model making is dioramas. And it's not because I'm an artist. It's not because, that's another conversation. But anyway, I won't get a canvas and make an art painting. It's got to be 3D for me. And I, partly through budget and partly through, the years that I've been modeling, not having the budget and deciding that I want to build a building, but how can I do it cheaply as possible and effectively as possible, et cetera, and overcoming those things. It has always been my mainstay with the hobby, is that I love to embellish something, to make it what I think it looks like, not what it should look like, what I think it looks like. And dioramas give you that ability to go off and imagine something and take what's in your head effectively, like you do an artist, take it from your head and put it on a paper. I just happen to put it into a 3D figure thing. So yeah, that is why I love, one of the reasons why I love the hobby so much, is that although I complain about flash and other bits and pieces that go wrong on model kits, that is really part of the process for me. I don't moan and groan about it, because it's part of the process. That's why I do it. Yeah. So, overcoming is you're right.
It's almost like, people joke and say that, making models is, there's the hobby of collecting models, and then there's the hobby of actually making it. It's almost like you have the building part of it, which is almost sort of like a 3-dimensional, to use your terminology, puzzle, where you're putting something together, and there's overcoming that challenge. And then there's bringing James Skiffins' take on that to the paint and finish work, or putting it in a scene, or presenting it the way that you want to present it, that makes it uniquely yours.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very, to put it in a simple term, like everybody that makes models and decides to share that images of that model, I'm always very concerned about what people might think of my abilities, of what I've done and all the rest of it. And like going back to dioramas for a second, if you think about a lot of dioramists will see a picture and imagine that scene and wanted it. I tend not to do any reference pictures, because I don't want that criticism. I don't want to stand there and go, well, yeah, the splash on that Lancaster of the bomb dropping in the water would be that high because here's the picture. I can prove it. Like, I can't be bothered with that. It's too much effort. So, if someone gives me a Gundam, I'm not going to paint it white and red because that's what it says on the packet. I'm going to go out of my way to find a different way of painting it, a different version, which may or may not offend somebody along the way, which isn't intentional. It's just I try to make what I make different to what the normal thing is, and it's that can be a challenge in itself, trying to control that. But yeah,
I don't think you should control it. I mean, that's what makes your model yours. You're always going to have people, unfortunately, that say that that's not real modeling, or that's not the proper way to model a Spitfire Mark 14C that was produced on Thursday in 1941 by, Bert and John, but I think that's what makes this hobby so interesting, at least to me. And I think that your podcast definitely reflects individuality and a spirit of fun and a spirit of creativity, which to me makes the hobby more exciting and more inspiring. And that includes like you guys talked about, the tarp group build or the walnut, seeing what people can do with taking a walnut and applying model making to that and seeing what they come up with. That creativity is something that I think we all value. So I'm going to switch over to Malcolm here. So James, you'll have a minute to prepare for this, but I want to start with either the funniest or the craziest interaction you've had through the podcast. And it could be a bit of feedback. It could be a conversation that you had out and about. Give us an instance where maybe you kind of shook your head a little bit.
I'm just going to jump in there. I'm just going to jump in there very quickly, Malcolm. I'm really sorry. Can you make sure you put a sound of a bus coming towards him before he answers this? Because I'm sitting there going, I can hear the bell ringing, ding ding. Under the bus you go.
Under the bus. I'm trying to think. We did a feedback. Sorry, did separate tracks. So you can just cut all that out. We did a feedback form. Hey, give us your feedback. Let us know. It's completely anonymous. Just tell us what you like. If you hate it, you love it, and everything else. Oh boy, people don't like things. People do not like things. People like to complain about little, smallest things that we just have no control over, or that we should even worry about. So someone said, "I can't believe you use the French horn in your music." The French horn? How dare you? What? I still this day, because it was anonymous, I don't know whether that was serious. Like, you really? And then I had to look it up to make sure it didn't mean something, if you use a French horn or something in your title sequence. But, yeah, that was weird. People could say that we're too childish and we say penis too much and things like that. But, that's the way it is. If you don't like it, don't listen. We bleep stuff out, but I only bleep stuff out because it's funny.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to do that. Yeah.
It is. Oh, you use the quack and the horn and things like that, don't you? But you can bleep stuff out if you say the word. But if you say tree, if you bleep that as well, it's funny. Which you could do. No, it's there are people's opinions on things when you ask. It's best not to ask. I think. The craziest thing. Oh wow. Yeah. We got asked to sign, something. I've never signed anything in my life, and they came up and they signed it. It felt like we were at Wimbledon or something and we were, signing leaflets and things like that. That was really weird. That was fantastic for my ego. Good God. That was great. But it was really nice to be able to do it because they obviously genuinely enjoyed the podcast, and it was something I was doing signing something for their father. And yeah, of course I will. But it was just kind of like, wow, you're producing a podcast and you're recording it and sticking it online and people like it that much that they want to own something you squiggled on. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, some of the other, crazy things I don't think we can talk about, but, yeah. What do you think, James?
No, I agree with everything you just said. There's been some head scratching moments. There's been some moments where we've both been very confused as to whether we should take it seriously or not, because we don't take each other seriously most of the time. So that's difficult in itself. But for me, as I alluded to earlier, the situation at Telford this year was the craziest and most bizarre thing ever. And, the fact that Malcolm doesn't like cinnamon on his, biscuits, which I didn't know, until that show. The fact that someone had come from Canada with biscuits to give us was bizarre. The fact that, this little girl come up to me and said, "Can you sign this for me?" And I was like, "What? What are you on about?" Was surreal and, probably one of the only times in which I can honestly say, I've been working, and someone has said something to me and I've gone into a complete meltdown as to, I don't know what you mean. What? I mean, I was asked second. but that's fine. You know, I get that. And
because they were nervous and they were scared. They didn't want to talk to you because you were really busy.
I've got the funniest, actually. I just thought that. I'll come to that in a second. But yeah, so the good thing about that was that Malcolm had already signed it. So he'd already shown me what you needed to do. And I'm like, honestly, this sounds really silly, I know, but I'm holding this thing in my hand and going, what signature do I use? I've got no idea. I sign my name, my name, right? How am I going to do this? That was quite strange. But the funniest thing that's happened to me actually was at Telford anyway. But it was the same little girl and her mum as they were leaving. I made the effort to make sure I waved and went, oh, see you later. Thank you. And the little girl going right behind her mum, if to say, you told me not to speak to strangers. This is just wrong. And we going, oh, okay. I clearly was asked to sign it because, oh, yes, go get the other one.
That's not the truth at all.
I know it's not, but it did make me laugh. But yeah, no, there's lots of things, you know, read the comments and, there's loads. There's just loads.
You know, you get ratings on the podcast apps, right? So like on iTunes, they'll give you, 5 stars or 1 star, 3. We have almost all 5 stars, but we got a 1 star rating, and I read it to see what we had done wrong, and we had released a April Fool's episode on April 1st, as it were. And somebody listened to it and didn't like it and gave us a 1 star rating as a result for it. Oh man. So it's like, oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Maybe the rating was met in the same spirit, in the spirit of April Fools, right?
Yeah, I would think
so.
So.
Don't know, do you?
Yes. So let's
say that 99.999% of people who are listening totally get it, love it, and want us to do more, which is great.
Yeah. And that's absolutely true. I think podcast listeners, because it is so focused, I think they tend to be, I don't want to say more intelligent, but maybe more engaged. I think that's the way to say it, because I think it does take a little bit of effort to find a podcast and then to engage with it over and over. In the case of my podcast and your podcast in particular, if you jump in on, one random episode, you're going to get a certain amount of humor. But if you've been engaged for a long time, you're going to understand your personalities more and sort of, like the hobnobs, the culture, right, of just making conversation. Let's talk about a better subject. Malcolm, give me an example of like a positive interaction where, kind of those moments where somebody confirms to you that what you're doing in JMC has some value and, or whatever that makes a difference in somebody's lives.
I can give you an example of one.
All right, you give an example of one, and then I will furiously think, unless it's the same. Well, or I will pretend that I have the same one, and I'll tell a story.
Yeah, you see, that's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? Damn it. Yeah, it's a very simple thing, actually, and I can allude to it because it's actually in Malcolm's picture that you can see on the screen there. So it is someone we know. It's a friend, but the fact that someone's gone to the effort they did tells us that we're doing something right and has made a difference. So again at Telford, and mainly all these explanations of things is because it's more recent and I'm very forgetful. But we were presented with a present, and we both received a number plate for a car that had hobnob or hobnobs written on it in a certain way, and it amuses me. It amuses me greatly that someone's got that humor, got that interaction, and it's made them feel that they need to go and get something. Because I don't know, maybe I'd never asked how this idea came about to present us with this. I mean, I will say that Malcolm got the front number plate and I got the rear. I mean, that just confirms everything I knew anyway. But that's fine. But yeah, for someone to go to that amount of effort, to do something, to engage with us, even though that person is a friend, don't get me wrong. I won't just try and make an illusion there, but they've gone to that effort. It's just a pleasure. And I've got mine. You can't see mine in my picture, but mine's just up here somewhere. so I see it every day. I see it every time I'm live, generally speaking. And it makes me smile every day, which is a fantastic gift. But like, just allude back to what you were saying to give Malcolm a little bit more time because he looks like he's struggling. Going back to your previous thing, you were saying listening is the biggest skill anyone can ever have. And unfortunately, a vast majority of the population of the world have not got the ability to listen. And what do I mean by listen? I mean to listen and be willing to actually formulate an idea or a process through the words that are going through your ears, not necessarily agreeing with everything, but having the ability to hear what's being said, the words that are being said, and thus getting any humour that might be out there, childish or not, or anything that's serious. And you're right, jumping into a podcast, as I often do when I try and catch up with my competitors' podcasts, I quite often sit there going, I don't get it. What's that all about? So listening is the biggest skill, which is involved with podcasts. So does that give you enough waffle to think of something, or was you thinking the same thing?
I wasn't listening. Sorry. What did you say? What was the question?
A positive, affirming interaction that you've had, or something meaningful.
Yeah. Well, I think what Dora said it about when that little kid came up and wanted to get something for the little child came up and wanted to get something for their dad and get us to sign it because they knew that he was a listener. That was awesome. Go on,
Mr.
Sorry.
Childs, can you please validate my parking, sir?
Is that what it was? Oh, I see. That'd be good. Sometimes when I've asked somebody if they're going to come on the show and talk, they're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely love it. Yes, please," and they're very excited. That's nice. I don't know. I obviously now and again we get messages from people saying, "I really enjoyed the podcast. Thanks very much for addressing this." Especially when we did the podcast about diversity and where all the women are in the hobby. We got a lot of positive response from that. Interestingly, the positive response was from a lot of males, but a lot of females didn't find it positive at all. It was only one. We should do more and talk to more people. But this is just one conversation in many, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that was good. That was great because we were worried about kind of attempting that because I don't think we're the kind of people that we should be attacking this kind of question. But hey, maybe we are.
That response, Malcolm, I have a question I wanted to ask you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of invested in this too. If you had asked me the question about, positive interactions, we've had kind of throughout the run of the posse, we've had a lot of responses from people saying either A, I'm in the middle of nowhere and you guys are sort of, my virtual friends. I feel like there's a social aspect of the hobby because I can hear you. And that means a lot to me. Or it's really just sort of, I have some issues of some kind or another, and listening to some of your guests who have been open about that or the way you guys talk about that has been really impactful for me. We've had a lot of guests that we've had on where we've had these kind of conversations who have been courageous enough to say, yeah, I struggle. I have anxiety or I have PTSD. And I know you guys are really doing your part in that. But I think as podcasters, to kind of go back to your comment, are there implied things that you feel a responsibility to address, or is this just sort of who you are and what you would do anyway when we're talking about things, even though it's in the vein of a niche hobby?
That kind of gets into the realm of public service, whether you're doing it for you or whether you're doing it for them. And what James and I always said from the very, very beginning, didn't we? We said that if we're not enjoying this, we'll stop. And then we did 2 episodes and we're like, oh, we're still enjoying it. So let's carry on. We haven't fallen out by the first season. We'll stop. And then we're still carrying on. So whether we are doing it for other people or whether we're doing it for ourselves, I think we're still doing it for ourselves, to be honest, and we'll have conversations about things if people want us to, that was certainly that diversity chat we had was certainly something that somebody asked us to do. And quite happy to. But I mean, coming back to what you were saying about people reaching out to say, I'm in the middle of nowhere. We do have that. Yeah, we do have that. We have that a lot, actually. And because we have it so much, it's just something that I don't think it was worth talking about. But of course, it happens all the time. People will say, thanks very much for addressing this, or thanks very much for talking about that. Didn't feel alone when I was chatting to you. It's nice to have somebody talking about stuff that I enjoy talking about for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Thank you. And because it happens all the time, it just becomes, I don't know, normal, for me. And it's terrible to say, but because I work with all the stuff I do for M4H and all the positive stuff that comes out of that, it just becomes normal to receive thank yous. So when you say, what is the most thing, I'm trying to think, how many lives are saved or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I think as long as James and I are enjoying it and it's not costing us anything, and we've got the time to release a podcast every now and again, and people are receptive to it, then I think we'll carry on. Once we've both got our private jets, then we can stop.
Yeah, exactly. James, maybe give you one more chance to talk about. Do you have an obligation to talk about this, or do you talk about it because that's who you are and it's a part of the hobby for you?
So you were talking about the obligation of mental health, or just generally.
Yeah.
Okay. So Malcolm, what Malcolm said is exactly right. We do this for ourselves. Malcolm is a whiz and makes it into some form of which creates an element of entertainment for someone or company for someone at their bench. And the format works. So that's all good. But Malcolm said earlier that I am who I am. And you meet me in the street, speak to me online, on the phone, in a message. Don't do a message because you won't understand my gibble whenever I do my tapping. But the response you would get in any of those formats would be the same as what you'd get face to face. So, there is no pressure on me to stand up in front of Airfix or the community and go, I know everything about model making and watch me, learn from me. That's not the case. What little things I do know, and quite often actually, little things I don't know, are more precious. I will go off and find out something. If someone asks me a question, I'll go and find out the answer if I can, or be honest with them, say, I don't know, go look there or whatever. That's the sort of thing that I feel an obligation to, if that was a word that I would really be on it. The mental health side of things, I use this hobby to control my mental health, and to control my demons and the things I struggle with. So why not? I celebrate model making. That's part of model making for me. So why not celebrate that too? And it's taking ownership of it yourself and all that sort of thing. So I'm free and open. I'm an open book, basically. Is there's very few things that happen in my world and what's around me that people don't know about, because I just repeat it anyway. Makes a difference. Even the most bizarre comments, which I won't repeat, but Malcolm will chuckle because he knows what I'm alluding to. Even when something happens that just feels awkward and weird, and I just sit in a group of ex-military people and pronounce something happened and then go, why did I say that in this group? That was really silly. I'm an open book. So no, there's not an obligation at all. And the only obligation that sometimes I do feel is the obligation of not letting people down. I suppose that's the only obligation there is. But we've been honest from the start, and we regularly have a conversation. Are you enjoying this? Is everything okay? We are honest, open and honest with each other as well. So there is no obligation related to the podcast into making sure it goes out every 2 weeks or anything like that. We just, if it didn't happen for whatever reason, we just say it didn't happen, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Stick with us.
Well, I think the obligation is to be true to who you are, and Malcolm to who you are as well. And I guess that sort of goes into the next topic that I wanted to move to, and that's the work that you do on behalf of others. James, with your Model Officers Mess Facebook group that you run, and Malcolm with Models for Heroes. So maybe if we could talk about that. I know you guys have been on before. We've talked about that before, but I think in light of the upcoming 48 and 48 event that we have that's become an annual thing, talk about that again. But Malcolm, maybe start with you, maybe tell us a little bit about Models for Heroes and kind of what the mission is and how you're helping people through model making.
Sure. So if my shed can stand the storm for the next 10 minutes, I'll be happy to. Everything is shaking around in here, and the external fan keeps spinning because of the pressure outside. It's a bit scary. So I will continue broadcasting as long as I can from this position. What was the question? Oh, right. M4H, yes. So Models for Heroes supports armed forces and emergency service personnel with the meaningful activity of model making in a way of improving well-being and mental health. And that activity is promoted to do so. The whole idea comes from, crikey, World War I soldiers were given things to build and fix to take their minds off what they called shell shock in those days. And it's still relevant now. People suffer all sorts of mind-blowingly awful things, and the brain is so damaged that it's hard not to think about that 24/7, including while you're sleeping. And so to have an activity that can take your mind off it, that isn't alcohol, that isn't drugs, that isn't illegal or abusive, and an activity that can distract you and bring you so many other positive things, then it's a great thing. And that's basically what we do. We try and promote the hobby for that, and we try and promote the hobby in general, just because it's a great hobby. No one gets hurt in it unless you cut yourself with a ruler. I'd rather have people building models and looking at the bottom of a bottle of Tammy Extra Thin than a bottle of vodka, for instance. If somebody's building something and it reminds them of their service in a positive way, then fantastic. If somebody notices that the turret isn't the correct turret for that model and they can scratch build something that fits with what their service was, that knowledge is incredibly powerful and useful in this hobby as well, which when you're in the service, fixing a tank is what you do. When you come out, they don't need that in Tesco's. They don't need that in general public life. They don't need to know how you fix a tank. But knowing the stuff about the tanks, obviously in the hobby is very, very important. So there's that. And of course, there's the camaraderie, there's the social side, as you know. There's the making friends in adversity when everyone's trying to battle the same terrible kit, and everyone's dropping stuff on the floor and joking about that and that kind of thing. So there's lots of benefits to the hobby, and we just did got some research finished that says exactly the same thing. If you're engaging in a hobby and it's model making and you're enjoying it, then you will feel better. At the end of the day, after your activity, you'll feel better. And if someone can feel a little bit better and they can have their day improved somewhat by a bit of plastic, then we'd be quite happy to give that person some plastic to build. That's essentially what Models for Heroes is.
It's incredible that a hobby like the one that we enjoy has so many benefits seen and unseen for people. That's really tremendous. James, tell us about Model Officers Mess. What's the mission and what is it designed and intended to do?
So the Model Officers Mess was, it started in a bizarre way in that I started a YouTube channel and wanted to do a group build and had no place to put it effectively, because putting it on YouTube is all but impossible. So that's how it started. But the idea, the inspiration behind what we do and what we've modeled to do over the years, is all about community. It's about getting a bunch of people together, not caring whether they're gold winners or architect builders or Jimmy from down the road who used to do models when he was a kid. And sharing in the joy of the hobby. That is primarily what it is. It's morphed into different guises as it's gone through the years. But the heart of it has always been the community and reflecting on Models for Heroes and what they do. One of the biggest parts of serving is the fact you are part of the community within that service that you're in. And then when you leave that service, you lose that community in most circumstances. And that is something very difficult to overcome. So having a community, which is aimed at people that, generally speaking, before I found the internet and forums and all that sort of thing, I loved going on a forum, and it was a particular forum I went on, I was a member of, but unfortunately it had issues every other year, so it would disappear and then come back. But the camaraderie of talking to people and discussing an idea and having someone say, oh, you can get around this by doing that, or oh, I've got this kit, I don't know what to do with it, it's got this bit missing, how, you know, and people throwing reference pictures at you and going, oh, you scratch build it, use this, use that, and just sharing the knowledge, the general sense of community and sharing is what the group's about and has always been about. The level of ability and knowledge is irrelevant, really. It brings something to the group, obviously. If you have an understanding of model making, or the ability is bigger than someone else, yes, definitely. But also, more importantly, than anything else, really, is the word inspiration. There are so many things out in the world that can give you inspiration if you're looking. We just happen to put this hobby into a Facebook group page, and I hope, and definitely get that feeling from people that interact in the community, that watching other people's builds and techniques and all that sort of thing inspires someone to maybe give it a go, or gives them they might go off on a tangent and think, oh, I could apply that to this and get a different effect. And, you know, all those sort of things just absolutely make my day. And there's nothing better than getting a bit of feedback from someone saying, oh, I've always been scared of doing this, but because this person has done it, it's given me a bit of confidence to try. And everyone in the group is they're not told, but I think everyone understands that we're not there to go, well, you've painted an eye, so they're looking in two different directions. You know, that's the criticism you get sometimes, generally. And that's not aimed at any group, but it's just something that happens from time to time. But in my group, I'm very, very fortunate that in the years it's been up and running, I have never had anybody do that. They've always been, if you want to help with your figure, it's something I feel I'm relatively skilled at, or I've got a bit more knowledge on, PM me. We've had people that have contacted me and said, oh, I noticed that something, figures is a classic. I had someone message me saying, I've noticed that a lot of people are struggling with figures. Do you mind if I do this, that, and the other? And I've always said to people, if you're going to do a build, make an album, make a photo album and show the process in which you've made the build. Because certainly painting eyes, for example, on a figure, there's 101 different ways to do it, but there is a couple that work really well 99% of the time. But if you don't share that knowledge, then people don't do it. So that's the idea behind the group, and the fact that it aligns with a lot of the things that M4H are aiming to do is a natural thing that we should be involved in and support. That's not to mention the sheer joy of the fact that you're helping someone that has given up their time, their career to defend you, whether it be from a fire or, you know, you're involved in a car crash or going to the front line or whatever. Yes, those people have chosen those careers, but they've also done something for you. And to give 5 minutes of your time or an hour of your time is nothing, totally nothing, and very worthy of doing.
Yeah, definitely. And, with the 48 and 48 event, we have an opportunity where these two organizations get to work together to help people. And for those who aren't aware of what that is, it's an annual event that I'll let James speak to the specifics, but where the Model Officers Mess leads an online global model building event, which is something we all like to do. And, the posse is proud to have been a part of the last couple of those and will continue moving forward. But James, maybe give people an idea of what that event, when it's going to be, and what that event is going to consist of.
So, yeah, you're quite right. The 48 in 48 is an annual thing we do because it celebrates the birthday of the group. So we set it up in March, however many years ago. I think it's 7 or 8 years now. But, yeah, every year we do something. And it's just using the tools in which we've got, basically, is that we want to promote the community, promote people getting together and not sitting in a dark room making their models and be involved. So we set a challenge, that being you get a kit. It's changed over the years. It used to be a 1/48th kit, hence the 48 and 48. You get 48 hours to build it. And the biggest rule is that you start the kit afresh at the start of the event. And that is the only rule. You can finish it, don't finish it. Makes no difference. Be a part of the event. By that, I mean, you can get involved online through the Facebook group by creating an album, posting up your pictures, showing your progress. We do a YouTube event, which is hosted by numerous people throughout the world, podcast related in most aspects, which the team, and I will call them the team because they are, everybody from the podcast gets involved and everybody helps to make sure that event runs smoothly. And I couldn't do it without you. It certainly wouldn't be what it is without you either. And that involves the community as well. So, so this year, 2024, we will be doing it a little earlier than we did the year before. So it'll be the 8th of March, Friday, the 8th of March, starting at 7:30 in your time zone. And that's where the global thing becomes interesting, is because last year we had Australia, Singapore, the Netherlands, Sweden, America, Canada, the UK, and I am missing someone. I know I am. Forgive me, whoever that is. No, Scotland doesn't count.
Berkshire?
Berkshire, that was the one. So because of the time zone difference, it starts at 7:30 their time. So it actually runs online in 4-hour slots, hosted by different people around the world. And it runs from, if I remember correctly, it runs from about 7 o'clock the Friday morning through to about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. No, 11 o'clock UK time this is on the Monday. So it's actually more than 48 hours, but it's not, because it's 48 hours in your time zone no matter where you are in the world. So,
yeah.
And the premise is very similar to the year before, which is a kit, unstarted, start at the beginning of the process of the 48 hours and build whatever you can to the quality in which you want as well. Finish it, like I say, finish or not finish, doesn't matter. Last year we did an auction for Models for Heroes. We raised a phenomenal amount of money, mind-blowing amount of money, of which I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was around 8,000-ish, was it, Malcolm? Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It was more than £1. So, it was a mind-blowing amount of money, ran very smoothly, a few hiccups here and there, i.e. me not taking part because I was ill. These things happen, but yeah, everyone had a fantastic time. And we were actually talking before we started recording, Scott and I and Malcolm, and Scott was right. It's phenomenal amount of people that message or have messaged me, knowing full well that it's going to be in March, but messaging me through the summer going, when is next year's one? When are we doing it? And I'm fairly certain, I'm not 100% certain, but I'm fairly certain at the end of the last one, we did say when it would be. But anyway, it sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not. So yeah, the amount of people that got involved has grown tremendously. I know the Triple P are fully stoked, as well as on the bench and the Model Geeks, and Miranda. Funny enough, Miranda from Scale Models for Vets messaged me literally only about 4 days ago about what we're doing, what you need us to do, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's a great example of the community come together. It's a great example of a shared experience being owned by the community as well, which means a tremendous amount to me in the fact that I have offers coming out of my ear rolls, best behaviour, of help, because I am somebody, like I've said previously, who has this crazy idea, goes off on a tangent and spends hours and hours doing all sorts of things that maybe you didn't need to do, but just will make that little bit different for the following year. So this year it's back to basics. Back to basics does basically mean we're going to try and make the production more basic than has been in previous years. And this is to give us all a little bit of a break and a bit of a breath before 25, where God knows what will happen. It could be all sorts of craziness going on the following year. But what we've done every year is we've built things up and done a little bit extra, a little bit extra, a little bit extra. And obviously last year was the first time in which I'd allowed other people to get involved and take ownership of parts of it. And we want to this year just basically make sure that all that we put in process last year works without a hitch this year, so that we know that's our basis to go forward for the following year.
Yeah, I think that really makes sense. And Malcolm, maybe before we start wrapping up with links and everything for the listeners, what does this event that James and the Model Officers Mess puts on annually, what does that look like in terms of Models for Heroes? How is it helpful? How many people are helped as a result of this global event?
Yeah, so I was just busy in the background looking up about how much we received in funding last year. Unfortunately, I can't log into the Just King account from where I am. So that's annoying. But I've just texted the treasurer to ask her exactly how much it was raised. And if I don't get an answer by the end, Scott, I will let you know, and then you can put it in the show notes. Okay. But it was in the region of thousands of pounds. Now, to send out a box for Models for Heroes, to send out one box of models, which is 10 models or so, and a set of tools, is £36 for Models for Heroes. And that includes a cutting mat, a set of tweezers, a set of clippers, a couple of paints, good glues, the basic you'll need for someone to get into the hobby. That's what we provide. And then the donated kits, obviously, are free because we get them donated. And then we just cost the cost of the courier around the UK. And that's around £36 depending on the price of cutting mats, which interestingly fluctuates quicker than you would imagine. But if you think about that, so 36 into 8 grand, whatever that is, do the maths. That's a lot of boxes that are going to go out. And of course, charities, organizations like ours, as they get bigger, costs more money to get bigger. So we've got insurance, we've got premises, we're paying for volunteers' petrol to get to face-to-face sessions. We've got lots of extra things on top of that that costs a lot of money, unfortunately. But we're in a lucky position that the modelers around the world understand how powerful this hobby that we're in is, and how helpful and useful and life-changing in some respects can be, and so are willing to support us in such a strong and powerful way that we sit very nicely. We're able to help everyone who comes up to us and asks for help, if they're long as they're within our remit, of course. Touch wood, we've never had to say no. We've always able to provide where we can. And that is just down to the people who are supporting us, and including the 48-hour build, including other people who have been doing fundraising and donate their time and efforts and everything else, and volunteers. And we're incredibly lucky that I think people see the vision and the cause in the same way and want to help. So it's not so much the money. It's never really about the money. It's just getting the word out there that this hobby is awesome, and there's some awesome people in it, and you don't have to be good at it. I mean, crikey, I've been doing it for 40 years. I'm still not any good at it. I suck at it. Absolutely terrible, but I enjoy it. And that's what matters. And that's what really, really matters.
Absolutely. Yep.
And to promote that to other people, even if they're not in the services, promoting that benefit of this hobby, to others is important too. And that's what the 48 does across the entire globe, yeah. And hey, you can't get bigger than that, right? Unless we go solar system wide.
Well, exactly. And I think on the other side of that, I think it gives opportunities, like the Plastic Posse community, an opportunity to get involved and to use the hobby that they love and enjoy to help other people. And, that opportunity has value. And certainly, partners of the posse, as well as others who donate kits or donate money to Models for Heroes, it means so much. And, it's really great. And so from the posse's perspective, we're truly grateful to both of you for what you do on behalf of people that need a little bit of a hand and need some social interaction, as well as the individual modelers that participate in these events and build, knowing that some good is going to come, whether it's social interaction or some donations or participating in the auctions where we can outbid our buddy just because we can, and knowing that's all done in the name of some good charity. And so that's really great. Well, Malcolm, let's start with you. Let's start with Models for Heroes. Where can people learn more about it, and where can people donate online?
So modelsforheroes.org.uk, all one word. Models for Heroes is, make sure you spell it correctly. Make sure you spell for F-O-R and not with the number. You can also go to m4h.org.uk, which is a bit easier. That is, excuse me, that is the number. So M with a 4 and an H.org.uk. And go there and there's a massive green button that says donate.
Awesome. Well, that's all straightforward.
Yeah. And on that button, it tells you how to donate model kits. So it's the address to send them to. It tells you where to send your flying hours, which we do with Airfix. You can send them to us and then convert them into model kits. You can you can fundraise for your group or yourself, and there's a Just Giving link on there. You can send money via PayPal. There's a PayPal link on there. So everything you need is all on that one big button. But also the website, it shows you, if you listen to this and you need some support, there's also got the support link on there too.
Excellent. And then James, Model Officers Mess, how do people find you, and where can they engage?
So just to interject for a second, in relation to fundraising, I do actually have the figures in front of me. Last year we raised £8,246, which we had set a target of 4,000 for that year. So we smashed it big time. But since Model Officers Mess has been doing the fundraising for M4H, we've actually raised £30 short of £13,000, which I didn't realise until I just looked it up on my phone. But yeah, it was a phenomenal amount, and a massive benefit to the charity.
$16,500.
Incredible.
Okay, so Model Officers Mess is a Facebook group. Go onto Facebook, just tap in Model Officers Mess in there, and you should come up with the group. It is a group in which you need to read the rules and all that sort of stuff and become a member. So it's not an open public group. So we've done that purely for the ability for people to feel secure within that environment. And we have a team of admins that will accept you into the group. And we will, we monitor it regularly to make sure that if there's any untoward things that happen, which, like I say, we don't really have, we can admin that moment. The model officer myself has a YouTube channel, which is the model officer on YouTube, which is where the live events are broadcast. So if you fancy sitting through 70 odd hours of last year, by all means do. They give you a taste of what's coming this year to a point. The faces would change slightly, this year. And as I said earlier, we're back to basics, but we are concentrating on the community more than anything else this year, because we want to get as many people involved as possible, but not just making them the model, which is fine. That's all you need to do. But if you want to be live in the studio with some of your idols, which may or may not be there, but feel free to do so. And we're going to sort out the links and all that sort of stuff for the Just Giving page in the coming weeks, certainly by the end of this month, and a schedule and all that sort of malarkey. Things will be slightly different this year because we wanted to, as I said earlier, we wanted to what's the word I'm looking for? Make sure that the processes we got in place were right, for going forward. So, but yeah, if you want to get involved, if you just want to get involved in the community, then I say Model Officers Mess on Facebook. Come and join us. 2.8 thousand, I think it is now, as members, which is a nice amount of money, nice amount of people. There's no money involved. What am I talking about? And like I say, just come and get involved, shake some plastic and enjoy the hobby.
Excellent. And who wants to give the social media links for Just Making Conversation?
Oh, that'll be Malcolm, because Malcolm's got them there in front of him.
Yeah, I can. They're in my brain. So, yeah, good point. I've never actually thought about giving out social media links. Just type in Just Making Conversation into Facebook and up it'll come. Make sure there's a cartoon of James and I, and it's not another podcast talking about other things. But you'll find it on Facebook. We have a Patreon page. We have a Twitter. We closed the MySpace. No one was interacting on there. We have our email address is, James?
That's a very good question.
podcast.jmc@gmail.com. It's that way around on this one.
Yeah.
podcast.jmc@gmail.com. If you've got any questions or complaints, well, perhaps go to plasticposse@gmail if you've got any complaints. Rather than sending us one.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can find us easily on Facebook, basically. That's our mainstay. That's where we try and focus anything. Your comment will get read and seen. We have an Instagram. We used to have a Twitter, but it was just so much stuff to read, and it was focused on it. And if you want to get in contact, that's
our main social media posts go out on Instagram and Facebook. So
on Mondays, isn't it, James?
Yeah, Mondays. No, I won't tell you the time because it's not always the same time. But yes, Mondays.
Monday, we're somewhere in the world.
Monday intended. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much. So, Just Making Conversation. If you're not familiar with Malcolm and James podcasts, please check it out. It's engaging. It's a lot of fun. The production is superb. Yeah, they're very self-deprecating, but it's really good stuff. And check that out. And then don't forget the 48 and 48 hour worldwide event. More details will be coming. Just keep an eye on the various social media pages we've talked about. The posse as well. It'll be broken down in regions. That's March 8th through the 10th of 2024. We hope that you'll participate. Come and hop on a session with us and build and talk about the hobby we love, and hopefully donate a little bit of money and participate in any auctions that happen. It's all for a great cause, and I promise you'll have a great time if you do it. So anyway, James, Malcolm, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Scott. Absolutely lovely to be hospitalized by yourself.
It's quite interesting.
No, not hospitalized. That's something else.
Yeah, that's something different. It's actually quite interesting doing this interview because it's sitting with the producers. I don't feel nerved at all by that, but yeah.
We'll start talking about editing and filters and stuff and it out.
Yeah. You will definitely edit that out.
Yeah, high pass, low passes.
Yes, exactly. Thanks again, gentlemen. We'll talk with you soon.
Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
Well, thanks for that, Scott. That was a great conversation with Malcolm and James. We're certainly looking forward to the 48 and 48 group build. And as we were just talking offline, the raffle or, auction itself should be very entertaining. It was certainly a lot of fun last year, not only raising a lot of money for charity, but we had some cool stuff as well. And got to thank our sponsors again, Tamiya AK, Tankcraft, just amazing stuff. And I can't wait to do it again. So that is fun. We're going to kick it over to Doug to talk about feedback because we love that word here.
All right, guys. First, I'm going to thank a new friend of ours. We've got Dan Hutton. He sent us a note, said, "Hey, guys, just started listening to your podcast. It's been a great listen on my way to work and made me laugh. I've just started modeling after giving up years ago as a kid due to some horrible criticism in my painting skills at the local Warhammer shop. I picked it up again by painting my first Star Wars model, a Revell 241st scale. That's what it is. Millennium Falcon, and I'm pretty proud of it. But he said he had his Hans Zimmer playing and got his head down. It was really a fist pump moment when he finished. He says our episode 5 was a winner for him, and he's looking forward to the next 80 or so.
Holy cow,
awesome.
They do get better, man. I promise.
There's some improvements in there. Anyway, take care and keep it up. Thank you so much, Dan. We look forward to hearing more from you, seeing what you build. Feel free to share on the Plastic Posse Facebook page, anything you want, and you'll find a lot of help there. And moving on, who wants to talk about Holy Grail kits? That was one of our subjects on the last episode, and we had so much response. I've got a bunch of them here. I'm sure I missed most of them, but I've got 2 pages here. So let's talk about it. Boyd Brown III, his Moebius 1/32nd scale Colonial Raptor with accessories. Glenn Felon said the 1/35th scale Halcyon APC from Aliens, and he would love to add the 2400 scale Sulaco. Cody Kaczynski, the 1/32nd scale AMT Trade Federation Armored Assault Tank from Episode 1 in the Clone Wars. Tom Byer, the Artillery 1/72nd scale M8 Greyhound, or a nice injection molded 72nd scale M18 Hellcat. Justin Ryan, the Architect Advanced Research Colonizer, or maybe a series of American rail subjects similar to the Revell Monogram Big Boys and the NYC Hudson. David Bryan Bridges wants the Dragon HO 229 back that he used to have, or possibly the AFV Club Churchill Mark IV. Bruce Worrell, Dragons, sorry, me and my German words, Brückenleger 4B, which may not have even had test shots produced, but he would also like an affordable FE2B in 1/48 or 32nd scale. A repop of the Wingnuts kit would, at a decent price, would be okay then. Michael Rosnick is working on files to make sure that his dream of a 1/18th scale F-106 Delta Dart will exist someday. He also digs the G-Mark 1/20th scale Bell 47. I'm trying to picture a lot of guys sitting on Santa's lap asking for these things. A lot of these, big model builders sitting with Santa. Brad Curtis, he served on the USS Connolly, the DD-979, and would love a 350th scale one in new tooling. Jamie and Reg Rigby's Holy Grail kit is the Montex Alleycat 1/32nd scale CAC Boomerang. It may be resin, but it's a big boomerang. Mike Gordy said he'd like to find a Revell 1/48 scale B1B that's not stupid expensive. JC Osborne, a 16th scale M7 Priest, and while he's at it, he says Andy can do a Sexton as well. Mr. John Vitkus is in with the Alliance Resin Waco PT-14, finished in Nicaraguan markings. Tim Nelson's kit doesn't exist, but a modern tool injected Boeing 314 in 72nd scale. Brian O'Donohue says the Cromwell models, 1/35th scale Spartan. He's not seen one in the wild, but he'd sure love one. A Land Rover Defender is yet to be made, but that's on Brian's list as well. Martin Vletter's kit is the 1/350th scale IJN Nagato with all the photo etch, metal gun barrels, rigging, and wooden deck. Hendrik Goss surprises with the Japanese hybrid carrier and battleship Issei in 350th with a full plate aftermarket. Jim Bates wants to do it the hard way. He wants a Matchbox kit. Monty's Caravan. That's just like Jim, isn't it?
I feel like Doug is like Santa Claus, like reading through all the kids, like the list of what they want for Christmas right now.
Good, naughty. Mateo Reich he had the USS Boxer as a kid, and he wants the Antietam, but never got it. He'd also love an injection molded M47 in 72nd scale. Eric Kane has been looking for the Testors XR7 Thunder Dart. You can't find it because it's top secret. Keith's hobby page wants the Trumpeter USS Iowa in 200 scale. Oh man, that would be huge and beautiful and stuff. Gareth McGorman can see himself building the Roden bus and Packard Clipper and demilitarizing it. Red Baron's hangar just got Tom's Model Works 148 scale Sikorsky S-38. Martin Holst wants the Bandai Perfect Grade Millennium Falcon, as everyone should. Robert Adams wants a new Tool A10 by Tamiya. Our friend Steve Baker actually just acquired his Holy Grail kit, which is the Monogram 48 scale B-58 Hustler. And finally, Daniel Knopfel wants the actual Holy Grail. That's what I've got. And that's all for feedback.
Choose wisely.
There's only one.
Did you say you've already got one?
It's a very nice.
I said there's always one.
I bet Mark Bradley has it.
At Bradley Hobbies, they have that.
And those shelves are so well organized, you'll go right to it. There's no guessing which is the correct Grail in Bradley Hobbies because everything is really organized well.
And again, just like to remind everyone that we are co-hosting an Operation Overlord group build with our buddies over at the Model Geeks. You can find that group build on Facebook if you just search Operation Overlord group build and join up. We have a list of people that are contributing, and just drop what you want to build on the pin thread. Get it added to the list and start building. Check it out. There's some cool stuff going on over there too. Yeah, it's a cool little place. We got, I think, a little over 300 people. I'm sure not all 300 people will be actually delivering something to Madison, but it's pretty cool. So please check it out and help support us and our friends over at the Model Geeks.
Are you a member of the Plastic Posse group page on Facebook? Well, you should be. Remember that you can send your feedback and suggestions to us via email at plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com or join the Facebook page. Welcome comments there, posts, and anything modeling related. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Scott for our second discussion topic.
Thanks, JB. Well, as most of you that were on the Facebook page saw or heard in our teaser that we had before the special episode we dropped on the podcast roundtable, you'll know that the Las Vegas Open was held last weekend. It was, by all things considered, a pretty awesome event. So we have three people here, JB, Grant, and Rick, that were all there. And maybe we just want to find out from them a few more details on what that was like and, what the activities were and, what they saw. So Rick, maybe start with you. Tell us a little bit about the Las Vegas Open and how you got involved.
Yeah. So it was more than just a weekend. I got there on Thursday. So Thursday through Sunday. It is a huge board gaming event. So we were talking about Warhammer, 30K, 40K, Star Wars. You guys can fill in the blanks, Kill Teams, everything else. Something we've heard around 20,000 plus participants over the days. It was massive. It was absolutely massive. And I think everybody would agree, incredibly well organized. It went off without a hitch. You can't imagine. I mean, I've posted a few videos, I think, or pictures, and so has JB and Grant, just showing the overwhelming number of people there. Yet the lines went quickly. Everybody got to where they needed to be. There was no confusion, no complaining. So I was there as a guest and a demo table person for AK Interactive and Lightspeed Global. So they put together the Lightspeed Global was there. They're actually running the booth for AK. And so we had a whole vendor booth there that was great and nice. And then selling product, of course. And then throughout the week or 2 weeks leading up to this event, we started having a conversation here online, and both JB and Grant kind of decided that maybe I should put them in my suitcases and bring them along. So both of them made it to the event as well. Grant showed up Thursday evening, and JB showed up first thing Saturday morning. And I can't tell you how much fun we had. And I can't thank them enough for sitting alongside me on the tables, doing demos, answering questions with these customers, and people enjoying the show, helping to sell product and all the rest of it. So it's kind of a quick overview. I'll let those guys kind of take it from there, maybe.
Yeah, awesome. Grant, maybe you can tell us kind of, what the show was like from your perspective. What was it like, working with Rick, and what did you see, at the actual show?
It was, first of all, I got to say thank you to Lightspeed and AK for letting us be there. It was a fantastic show. Like Rick said, it's so well run. There was long lines because there was 20,000 plus people there, but it went so quickly. They had apps that were designed for the show themselves that tell the gamers which table they're at, what room they're at. If you remember I believe it was, I can't remember what year the Nationals was there. Was it 2020, I believe? The vendor room for the 2020 IPMS Nationals was that gaming room, was one gaming room, and that was actually 4 times larger than the actual vending room was in 2020. So they opened up all the walls all the way down past where the models were at, everything else. So that was just one of, I believe, 6 or 7, I think, rooms that they had open for gaming. Massive amounts. They were televising, they were streaming live show or live events, live games. They had they had computer setups, they had lighting setups, so they were streaming. They had a YouTube channel set up that they were actually, LVO had set up in one of the rooms that they were actually doing play-by-plays and talking about who was in the lead. They did something really cool. They had armbands for the players. For everybody who went to the show, they were color coordinated. So if you had one corner color, you could go certain places. And if you had, I think there was black, was the black armband was or wristband was meant you could go anywhere and you didn't have to wait in lines, and you paid a little bit extra. There was some fantastic demos that were there. We're talking 14 to 20 people in some demos. They were $1,000 for 3 days, and they were sold out within short times. It was the show itself was just phenomenally run. AK was great. Carlos was there. We really appreciate that. Carlos showed up, and I got to talk to him. I got to sit next to Mr. Rick Lawler and learned so much from him, what he was doing. He painted a dwarf while he was there, and I was so proud that he did. And he finished that up, and it's on the Facebook now, which turned out great. JB showed up Saturday morning. I drove to the airport and picked him up. We went straight from there to the tables and started painting. And he was there. He got the shotgun version of the show right there from the start. And we had a great time doing that. Unfortunately, I had to leave Sunday morning. I had work commitments the following Monday that I had to do some traveling for, but it was a great time. I would definitely do it again. There was a side trip, and I'll let JB talk about that a little bit more, but because he's the one that set it up. But I really want to, first of all, I want to say a big thank you to Penny from Las Vegas, who helped us so much and got us that little side trip. It was a fantastic time. I cannot thank her enough. She did a lot. She did a lot for us in a short time, and I really, really, really do. She's a really good friend of ours. Can't wait to get them on the show and see them again at the Las Vegas Open coming up in a couple months. So
no, that's great. Penny Meyer, she's an incredible artist, a great person. So John, let's get your perspective on this. Maybe give us some information about the show from your perspective, and then maybe talk about that side trip and anything else.
Yeah, I think just to repeat what Grant and Rick said, it was a very well run event. A lot of digital footprint there. When I think about the event, not a lot of paper copy, and it was all really seamless. I'll be honest, I didn't see any complaints either online or in person. I thought it was really smooth. I thought, where there are opportunities for that show, it is a gaming show. And from what I was told is it was the largest Warhammer tournament. It's like the premier Warhammer tournament, 40K in the country. Now, people do admit Adepticon is a bigger event, but from a gaming perspective, from a competition perspective, I was told that Warhammer 40K, that was like the place to go. And if you went to the IPMS Nationals, that room that encompassed the vendors, and the contest area, that entire footprint and expanded was Warhammer 40K. I've posted some pictures online, but hundreds of tables. And what impressed me the most was the organization. So each table's numbered, but beyond that was the terrain that they had to support all these games. So we're talking hundreds, if not thousands, definitely thousands of terrain pieces, hundreds and thousands of mats, and every one was different. It was just really cool. And that was just one room. As Grant mentioned, there were 3 massive rooms and then just pockets. They literally took every piece of that facility. And, it was not only the games, I think they had over 40 different kinds, from Star Wars Legion, Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, literally everything, Star Wars Armada, Kill Team. It was just really exciting. Every room had a different flavor, and even little side rooms. So think of Flames of War. That's a smaller, game essentially for, I think it's 1/144 scale vehicles. There was also bolt action. So everything from historical, sci-fi, and fantasy. Outside of that, as mentioned, the classes. So you had the best painters in the world going there. And this is an area of the show that they look to expand and grow, because it was kind of small. They did actually have a scale model competition, a miniature competition there, but it encompassed only a couple of shelves up front, and they were glass enclosed. I think they were locked too, very well lit. I saw my favorite octopus in a barrel there, which I sent a picture to Jensen. Absolutely fantastic. The names go on, and I'm ignorant in a sense of knowing who's who based on their name. I know their work from photographs, either from Kickstarter campaigns, Instagram, Facebook. All of them were there. The top artists were there, and a lot of them congregated around a table set that was posed in the main hallway, and that was showcasing the future Verko's Vault Museum. Grant mentioned, Penny Meyer, fantastic individual. We got to connect with her, and we were fortunate enough to be invited over to Gary's house, which houses the collection now that will serve as Verko's Vault, a premier miniature museum and learning center in Las Vegas. It'll be slightly outside of Las Vegas, and actually on the way to his house, we stopped by the future facility. And if you like their Facebook page, you can see what they're building. So essentially 2 main buildings, beautiful. They've had one built already that'll serve as a classroom and learning center. And then obviously the museum will be right next to it in a larger facility. But as we went to their house, Penny's like, hey, meet us outside. Cool. So went outside, met who she was going with. And one of them goes, hey, I'm Ben. Nice to meet you. Oh, cool. Hey, Ben. Nice to meet you. Turn around, walk away with John Everett. I'm like, I think that was Ben Comets. He's like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, you know who Ben Comets is. I showed him some pictures, and he's like, oh, I know who Ben Comets is. This is amazing. And we get to his house. I go up, and I'm like, Ben, you're Ben Comets. You're Ben Comets. He's like, yeah. He's a super nice guy, like an amazing individual. And as Grant said, he gave him a little crap inside, but so nice to meet him. Sergio Calvo was there as well. So it's like these, we're slumming it. It's me, Rick, Grant, Carlos from AK, and then Lester from Lightspeed. And we show up, and we walk into a room with like a bunch of Picassos, Da Vinci's, and it's just like, okay, well, I don't know why we're here, but we're going to drink it in while we're here. And it was, you can see the stats. 16,000 miniatures will encompass this museum. A lot of them are smaller, so think of D&D scale, Warhammer 40K kind of scale. But that doesn't excuse the fact that they have several thousand unbelievable, talking top tier pieces from the world's most renowned miniature artists. I hearken back. It's funny. We're standing in the one room, and I'm like, this is SMC gold, every piece. And it reminded me, Jensen and TJ, when we were walking around the hall there, it was very similar in that caliber. And it was not only in like a side dining room, it was on the kitchen table, on the kitchen stovetop, in the foyer. They were literally everywhere, somewhere on the seats of the dining room table, miniatures upon miniatures wherever you look. And every one of them was simply astounding. Some of the recent pieces that were acquired were at the island in the kitchen area, and Ben Comets was there and talking about his pieces. And it's like, holy cow. We spent, I think, a little over an hour there. It certainly went in minutes, and my phone was on fire because I was taking as many pictures as I could. I think one of the coolest shots I have, and I mentioned John Everett, he came too. There is a wine room in this house with a huge glass wall essentially peering in, and beautiful wine rack, and it's all miniatures. It is quite astounding. I have a picture of John and Rick in there, simply in awe of what they're looking at. And then picture of Grant staring just off blankly into space, like, what am I doing here? It was that kind of experience. And I'm so thankful that this type of experience can be shared with the world, because it's something that everyone can enjoy and everyone will take inspiration from. So I am beyond excited when Verco's Vault gets established. I think they're doing a main opening, I want to say 2025 timeframe, like an official opening of the museum and learning center. They've done soft launches. I know they're teaching some classes there right now, and they already have a schedule out for this year, and some of the biggest names in painting will be there. Eric Swinson, as we mentioned before. I think Sergio Calvo's coming over, Ben Comets, and a bunch more. So look out for that if you're in the Las Vegas area. But again, major shout out to Penny, and then also the proprietor, Gary. His vision, his dedication, and his love for miniatures and the hobby is certainly on display, and certainly will be out to the public very soon. So overall, 10 out of 10 trip. If you are a scale modeler, if you're curious, please, I would highly recommend this show. Not to mention, I'll cap it off, the vendors there weren't that many vendors, but that's okay, because what there was extremely high quality. So every AK product you could think of was available. They had gamer's grass, which I spent a lot of money at, because that's some of the best terrain tufts and grass features that I know of. And they actually had a cool little demo area you could build stuff on. There was also Army Painter, Games Workshop. There was a couple of people out front. I forget the name off the top of my head, but they're in the pictures where they basically sold proxy pieces for Warhammer Army. So you could have your own kind of, individual style. Awesome wet palette I bought from them. Artis Opus was there selling. The list goes on and on. Pro Acroll from Monument Hobbies was there. Bottom line, high quality stuff. If you can get a cheap trip into Vegas, do it. Special shout out to John Everett for letting me stay at his Alice in Wonderland house that has both a creepy and amazing vibe to it. I'd definitely go back. Highly recommended. I'm going to leave 5 stars on Yelp. With that, I'll yield the floor back to you, Scott.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing event. Grant told me that he got to spend time with Duncan Rhodes and Artis Opus, and then obviously the three of you were painting at the AK booth. So it sounds like a really fantastic opportunity to interact with a lot of really well-known figure painters and mini painters.
Yeah, it was a wonderful week. And once again, my thanks to both JB and Grant for hanging out with me. And also, John, you forgot one of the most important things about the house tour, which were the swords and the daggers and such.
Oh, yes.
Because Gary has also this movie collection. So the original sword from Conan the Barbarian and the staff of Gandalf, and they're all just there, and they will eventually go to the museum. And we got some silly pictures of ourselves posing with those.
Yeah. They also had Gimli's axe from Lord of the Rings, the original one that he carried during the entire series. So it's, daggers from every major motion picture that you could think of and stuff like that. And we didn't see it all. There was an upstairs that we never got to. That was more dioramas and stuff like that. So, and terrain and stuff like that. So it's when you say 16,000 pieces, it's amazing what that is. A lot of it, there is some 15 millimeter stuff, a lot of war game stuff like that. But, you're like TJ said, we were walking. I felt so out of place because, you're sitting there and we're just like, taking pictures. And these guys are like talking about, appreciating. And it was phenomenal. Back to the show, though, real quick. I want to thank Lightspeed, their crew there in AK. That was a blast. That can't be enough. Rick, for letting me and JB basically wig you out of the way, get some room and play with some of the new AK products, which I want to talk about real quick. Inks are fantastic. We use some of those. They have some really great shades coming out. Gen 3 paints, of course, are beautiful. Don't let the numbers from the show scare you. 20,000 plus people. It runs so well that you won't really notice it unless you're trying to get on your elevator at the end of the night. But everything else it runs so well, and they're providing food. There's water everywhere. There's everybody is really friendly. Like JB said, I never heard a bad thing about anything. Everything seemed to run really well, and it was fun. And it's just a fun day to see some couple days to have. And I suggest that everybody take a look at it one time.
I think it actually puts an exclamation point on that whole "the hobby is dying" thing too. Oh. I mean, every one of these 20,000 people are building models, painting models of some sort of scale or genre or another. And, sitting at those tables, you guys experienced this too. Everybody had a story to tell. Everybody wanted to know something a little bit different or share something with you that they've found or whatever. I mean, the enthusiasm, the dedication to their craft is absolutely amazing. And, I'll just echo exactly what you guys have said. It was a wonderful week, and the participants couldn't have been nicer, better, a great group to hang out with. And I'll also say, AK and Lightspeed did a fantastic job of setting up and hosting us throughout that week. And there was nothing that we wished for that they didn't provide for us. So thanks to them as well.
Yeah. One last thing I'll add. Definitely thank you, echoing everything for Lightspeed, Krish and Lester and the folks. They were awesome. One thing I will mention, we had an opportunity to see Squidmar's Crash Manta diorama, and that was just so cool. I've been watching a lot of Squidmar lately, and seeing it in person, taking a crap ton of pictures of it, certainly inspiring. I haven't blown up, and looking and studying at them, truly inspirational. So yeah, overall, fantastic show. Highly recommend it. It's on the list like many others. So there's only so much time, and I need to win the lottery so we can just go to these.
He's actually said on his show, his last episode, that they are really going to try and be there for next year. So hopefully Squidmar does make it. That would be great. He brings some of his stuff. So that's good.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. That sounds like it was a great event. I think it sounds like something I'd like to check out next year. So we'll have to, like John said, pencil it in on the calendar. Let's move over to TJ.
I just want to remind everyone that the Plastic Posse is just one of several great scale modeling podcasts. If you're interested in more scale modeling content, you can head over to modelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to many other great podcasts, such as Small Subjects, Plastic Model Mojo, Just Making Conversation, The Model Geeks, the Modeling Sanity Podcast, On the Bench, the Sprue Cutters Union, Scale Model Podcast, and many more. We also recommend several excellent scale modeling related blogs and vlogs, such as Stephen Lee's Sprue Pie with Frets, Chris Wallace's Model Airplane Maker, Scale Canadian TV with Mr. Jim Bates, and David Brian Bridges' DB Scale Model Studio blog.
It's time for merch. If you would like to rep the posse, check out our awesome merch on our Triple P Spring page. You can find coffee mugs, t-shirts, jumpers, and even some of our world-famous Triple P lounge trousers. Sadly, there's no Snuggies yet, but who knows what's down the line. You can order all of your stylish Plastic Posse merch on the web at Plastic Posse Podcast, creatorspring.com, or loungetrousers.com.
Well, thanks everyone for riding along in episode 86. It's certainly been a lot of fun with the Plastic Posse, and I definitely want to thank Rick for joining us. It's awesome to have a full crew and a special guest. We appreciate your support, as well as the support of the awesome Patreons. We also want to thank Tankcraft, Tamiya USA, AK Interactive for their support throughout these episodes as well. Remember, the Plastic Posse is now available on YouTube as well. We will return in 2 weeks with more fun and great discussions about scale modeling. Do you have feedback for us? Suggestions, ideas, comments, complaints? Please send them over to Plastic Posse at plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com, or shoot us a message on Facebook. Thank you so much. And with that, yeehaw!
One of the ways that you can help support the Plastic Posse is to become a Plastic Posse Outrider. If you want to become an Outrider, it's super easy. Go to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast and set up a recurring donation there. These contributions help offset the cost of bringing you the Triple P. There are 3 different tiers of support, starting at just $1 a month. And there are some great benefits to being an Outrider, like early access to podcasts, premium access to the hosts, a chance to appear on the podcast, and exclusive Triple P content and social events at model shows.
Let's recognize some of these amazing deputy marshals. These guys set up and help the posse do what we do, and we sincerely thank them for support. First, our newest deputy marshals are Ben Hardaway, Adam Jackson, James Morado. I hope I said that right. And let's not forget Casey Gray, Mike Norris, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Tim Gidcombe, I cannot say that, Dan Newman, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Brian Kreiner, Scale Model Craft, Ken Childress, Nick Buda, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perrone, the voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Ryan Smith, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Eden Mill, Bruce the Model Noob, Steve Baker, Eric Daglish, Joe Porche, Patrick Brown, Steve Schaefer, J. Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Ted Carwa, Toadman, Model Doc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Les Workala, John Everett, Josh Buck, Thomas Bannock, Mark Bradley, Zach Pease, Joel Munson, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Matt Johnston, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Model, Dan Knopfel, and J.C. Osborne.
Let's also recognize our excellent posse foremen. These foremen are outriders who give deputy marshals a hand. We have the Krieger, Keith, William, Tim, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, George, Gary, Warhol Models, Ross again, Eric, Len, Cliff, Eric, Papa Steve, Red Beach One Studios, MB Models, JV, Damien, Kieran, Cody, Tim, Nuke Man Mike, Greg, Ash, Irish Pat, Paul, What's the Deal with Ibo Models, Mr. Chris, Jackson, MAK Armor, Chris, Lee, and Jamie.
And of course, our Posse Outriders, including our newest Outriders, Stefan Ortmans and 80s Scale Model Shed. Welcome aboard, guys. Please consider posting a review of the Triple P on your podcast platform of choice. Each 5-star review will help other modelers find the Plastic Posse. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.